If you are here to listen to the podcast of sorts of Lauren rambles about various things while ostensibly playing Disco Elysium, welcome. Welcome. Lots and lots of talking in the game. We are here. Discourse Elysium. Oh. That's actually a really good one. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. Well done. Well done, Discourse Elysium. I would just steal that. Just name my series that. It doesn't matter if anybody else is using it. It doesn't matter if somebody else came up with it. That's so good. Oh, man. Then I'd have to... I don't know. Okay, boys. Let's see if we can do this without the boys. Doing their back trust thing. So, before we dive on in, a quick reminder to everybody, no spoilers, no backseating. If this is your first time and you've stumbled in without having seen me before, I will warn you, I talk a lot. I'm very slow. We talk about things that are mostly related to the game, or at least inspired by, prompted by what happens in the game. But we talk about lots of things that that are not quick to talk about. So be warned. That may or may not be your jam. Totally get it. That it's not everyone's jam. So I won't be mad if you duck out. So the no spoilers, no backseating policy I take very seriously, because we are here for me to experience the game in my own way, not for me to be taken by the hand and shown around by other people. That's a valid way of playing games, but is not how I choose to stream. If you are going to explode, may I suggest the Stream Spoilers channel on our Discord server, where you can go and yell with everybody else, and I don't go there, so I don't get spoiled, but you can let out that urge to yell about whatever it is that you're about to explode over. If I have a question and I actually want you to answer it, I will make it very clear by putting on the chat hat. You can't miss it. The chat hat is very distinctive. If the chat hat is not out, chances are any question that I ask is rhetorical and not meant to be answered by anyone but me or Kim. Sometimes Kim will answer my questions for me. He's very thoughtful that way. I don't know, do we have any questions? Does anybody have any questions for me about things or what or how? I will say I continue to get really interesting YouTube comments here. It's funny, I've never had a game prompt conversation and like the kind of conversation that this game prompts. And some of it is kind of to be expected, in that this game is dealing with real world issues, and this is a very, very, very deeply, overtly political game. And so people talk a lot. Oh, the chat hat, it's the lesbian flag. But it's sideways instead of... But you know, lesbians can be the same color as Disco Elysium's color scheme. That's valid too. No, so because it's such a political game, you get folks talking about politics in the comments and getting really heated about it, which is interesting. Because I don't shy away from talking about politics in my streams normally. There's less politics to talk about when one is playing Paper Mario. However, do not let that fool you into thinking that I will not bring up politics while playing Paper Mario, because I absolutely have. But this game definitely lends itself more to that. And it brings out people's feelings and thoughts. And so I talked last time a little bit about how so many people kind of, in a way, taking me to task for talking about clown shoes in the way that the communist option was provided. And people occasionally being like, this thing is a joke or isn't a joke. or something like that. And I'm just like, I am clearly not aligned with this. Like, there's a lot of things that I take seriously at face value, and then everybody's like, no, Lauren, it's a joke. And then when I'm like, this is clearly designated as a joke, like this is clearly joking and funny and over the top, and people are like, no, that you're supposed to take seriously. Obviously, I'm not fully, for all that their read on people and my read on people seems to overlap, and my picking up on the details of how people speak and carry themselves and kind of reading between the lines seems to be serving me well here. It is clear to me that something about the writing must just not align with me at all on a different level, because as I said last time, it does make me feel kind of in line with what my friends who are autistic say their experience is, where they react to the world as they see the world, and then people are like telling them that actually things work differently. And it kind of sometimes makes me feel like maybe I'm losing my mind a little bit, because I'm used to thinking that I can have a decent handle on writing unless something is Kentucky Route Zero, in which case I'm going to do my best. Kentucky Route Zero was interesting because there were layers there that I did get, and a lot of layers that I was like, I'm just not something enough for this game. But here, I don't know. I thought that I was vibing with the writing pretty well, except that jokes frequently go over my head. Now I don't know. Hard to say. Hard to say. And maybe the problem is that people have hindsight, as you're saying, Jan. Maybe it is that people know the mechanics of how things work because they've played through it before, and so they're frustrated that I don't psychically know the mechanics or open myself up to having the mechanics explained. But you're not supposed to know the mechanics. You're not supposed to know. You're supposed to muddle through this blindly. You're supposed to be awkward and stepping on toes and misremembering things and misunderstanding things and desperately trying to figure out what the hell is going on around you, both in the mechanics of the game and in the experience of playing as Ocelot himself. And so I'm just gonna have to muddle through and say and do things that have consequences that maybe if I had played the game 3 times I would avoid, but I don't, so it's fine. Playthroughs. I don't know. It depends. It depends on how we interpret that word. If it's a hyphenate word like that, yes, but if playthrough itself is a single word that has been smushed properly together, don't remember what it's called. When you have 2 words and then they become hyphenated, and then they eventually become made into one word. Over time, it's this evolution of things as this phrase becomes so commonplace. I don't remember what that's called, but I used to know once upon a time. A compound word, yes. Is it the States? But there's the different degrees of it. I'm not sure. There's terminology there that evades me. My memory is not back, but a lot of my energy level is. So we'll see how I do brain-wise. I'm definitely getting better in a lot of ways. I still don't think I'm 100%, but I think I'm probably pretty close, unless, well, we'll see. I'll keep you all posted. Yeah, so one of the things that has been most heated in the YouTube comments in particular, but that also happens here, is the idea of communism. And I think what's going on there, and the reason why, because I've eventually realized, and part of the problem that I had was people were talking to each other or about commenters or things like that, but not to me, and with my brain falling apart the way it was, basically deprived of oxygen and not functioning right, I wasn't able to make that distinction. Yeah, portmanteau is when you take 2 words and put them together, but there's something about the multi-step when you have, is it go from between a compound word to a portmanteau? It's like a compound word when it's hyphenated, and a portmanteau is when it's been put together. But anyway, I eventually realized that what's going on is not anything to do with me. And some of the things, some comments, some of the things that you folks here in Twitch say, and some of the folks that you watching this on YouTube tomorrow say, like, you are directly engaging with me and what I say and how I react to things and stuff. But a lot of times, what is causing the degree of conflict, I think, that's happening here, has two reasons. One, people have a deeply personal connection to their playthrough of the game and their understanding of the game. And even if they've played through it multiple times, I think they probably wear some grooves in their own brains of the way that they think about things and what feels right. And so if I don't follow in those grooves, it can either feel uncomfortable to them because it's just like, well, I know how the game is played and you're not doing it right. And it's like, have you seen there's the video of the woman watching somebody try to put it's a joke, but trying to put the little like children's shape puzzles in the right or wrong places, and she's like talking through it like, yes, you're gonna get, oh no, you got it wrong, and the discomfort of that. Okay, I can see several of you are quoting it. So you know what I mean. When somebody does a thing and you know that it's wrong, whether it's actually going to have a consequence that you know is not what they want to have happen, because okay, here go our boys, because you know what I want out of this game, you know what I'm looking for, you know the kind of experience that I'm trying to have, the kind of player that I am, the kind of person I am, so you kind of make guesses based on that. And so if I step in a direction that's going to go away from that, there's a discomfort there for you. Or if it's simply that there is the way that you are used to playing the game. It's like somebody chopping vegetables for you. If they offer to help you in the kitchen and they slice the onion wrong. And there's just that feeling of they're chopping it wrong. That's not how you chop an onion, or at least that's not how I chop an onion. And so I think that there's a degree of discomfort happening there sometimes. Taka no 320. Thank you for following. Welcome to Lauren Rambles About Things. No, and I don't think any of us are immune to this fully. I think if you go into something like, I'm gonna see this thing that's gonna be done differently than how I do it, that's a good way of kind of pushing past it. Or having something like the spoiler chat to just be like, oh my god, why is this happening? To have that outlet. It's a very normal, common human thing. But I think that that's part of it. And I would even go so far as to say like people have such a strong connection to their experience with this game, such a strong connection to it, because it's not just the game, it's such a personalized experience because there are so many different directions that you can take in so many ways that your playthrough is actually gonna be really personalized. It's the sort of thing that, I'm sorry, here it goes again. It's the sort of thing that BioWare likes to pretend they're gonna do, but they don't even remotely do. Actually happens here. And so that degree of personalization, I think, makes this like dramatically compounds how much this happens. That might normally happen to a smaller degree in regular games. It happens a lot here. But I also think that there is an interesting thing going on here, specifically because I've noticed that the biggest points of contention, I mean, there's like, Lauren, you talk too much. That's fine. But there's also the point of contention that like the thing that has just caused so much has been this clown shoes communism introduction. And instead of viewing this as a disconnect between the writers and Lauren in the presentation of what's serious and what's humor, that we have seen be occasionally a point of contention with me trying to find my way through this. Like, in addition to that, that's still like is like at the center of so much of the conversation that I see, which I think is really interesting. And part of what's so interesting about that is that more than any other game I've ever played, this stream has brought in a wider range of international people from more countries, more generations, and more life experiences. And so that means that it matters. And furthermore, in addition to that, this is a game that is made in a country by people with a different culture and language from my own, and not one that I am familiar with engaging with on some level. I've been consuming Japanese media for long enough now, and enough of it, that while I'm certainly no expert in Japanese culture, even remotely, and I do not speak the language, I have some framework for understanding things that happen in games that I play that are from Japan originally. I can be like, okay, well, I assume that this probably has something to do with this linguistic element or this cultural element that I am aware of. I don't have that for like Estonian culture or language. I don't know that. So in a way, I am stumbling blind because this is a game that is based in real world contexts. So it matters even more than if they had written a complete like high fantasy situation, you know, if that makes sense. So that's part of it, that I don't fully have a grasp on that. And we have people from Estonia chatting in chat, which is really interesting because obviously you're going to bring a different perspective to this than I will, and than any of the rest of us who do not have that like first-hand connection to the same background that the writers are bringing on some level. But then you have people who are from other neighboring countries, cultural experiences that probably have more overlap and similar perspective. And then you have those of us in North America with a very different background, folks in other parts of the world as well. And so because of all of these different experiences, and because as Space Cowboy was saying, the choices in this game are driven by personal ideology, and it's not just like, do I kick puppies or do I help grandma across the street? Like, it's literally politics. It's political ideology. That's something that has real world consequences, but that we may disagree with each other on. And so it's really interesting to me because we have viewers from different perspectives who are responding not just to my responses to things, but to each other's responses to things, and sometimes getting in heated arguments, sometimes just having interesting conversations about communism. We have folks who would be self-identified as communists, some of whom perhaps are more of the like jaded former idealists who say that the humor in this game, kind of tongue-in-cheek making fun of it, but also being somebody who still really wants to believe in it, comes through. And that is one section of the people watching this. And then there's also people who are perhaps more still in that more idealistic phase, who would identify themselves as communists, but don't have that perhaps same degree of world-weary cynicism that puts the clown shoes on the communism. So I feel like the more jaded communists, when I say, oh, this is clown shoes, they're like, okay, yeah, that's clown shoes. This is a clown shoes presentation because we wind up a little bit jaded and that makes us clown shoes. So we relate to that. I feel like the more idealistic ones perhaps feel that I'm accusing them of wearing clown shoes. So that's something that's going on. But then you have the people who are from parts of the world that have experienced the worst form of governments that you know, labels themselves as communists, and great harm was done. And those people may not consider themselves like conservative by nature or fascist by nature or anything like that, but they find communism deeply off-putting because of their personal experiences or cultural experiences with it. And then they sometimes take issue with the people who consider themselves communists and say, clearly you don't know what you're talking about, and you must be people from the West who don't know what communism can do. But then you also get people who are from like more like the Eastern Europe area, and I'm sorry if there's better terminology I should use to refer to that region, please let me know, because I know that regional titles tend to be very centric to Western Europe or the United States, and that's excludes people, it others people in a way. So if there's another way of phrasing that, please let me know if Eastern Europe is not the right way to describe that. But so you have Eastern Europeans who are hurt by communism in the past, getting really upset about how the people who call themselves communists these days must be idealists from the West who don't realize what's actually happened. But you also have people, sometimes who are Eastern European, who have perhaps more of that jaded communism, but do call themselves communists, who look at the anti-communist things that people are saying and say those must be Westerners who are suffering under the anti-communist propaganda of the United States educational system. And that's fascinating to me, that the people in this region of the world who have had governments identified as communist that have done great harm, I think that those are the facts. You can argue about the specifics. You can argue about whether they departed from like communist ideology and just like went straight into fascism or whatever. I don't know. Like, there's conversations to be had there, and I am not the scholar to have those conversations. But I think there are some facts that we can agree on. That, and so because of that, the people who are most likely to be in the know, who are from this region of the world, who have had that cultural and historical experience that they have grown up with, can simultaneously have these conflicting ideas where when they see people they disagree with, they say it must be because you are a Westerner who is mistaken and doesn't know what you're talking about. But they apply this to both sides of the political spectrum, and that's super interesting to me. And yet I don't know what your perspective would be as a Brazilian on that. Like, other regions of the world have very different experiences, and as I've said a million times, I only know mostly the American, like the US perspective, and to a lesser degree the Canadian perspective, which has a lot of overlap there. But I think that if anything, this is a reminder that no group of people is a monolith. And that's, I think, a really important thing to remember, that people will say, oh, but this is okay because my one friend who's from this background said it was okay. And somebody will be like, no, this isn't okay because my one friend from that background said it wasn't okay. And it's complicated and hard because we want to be able to do a good thing. We want to be able to do the right thing. We want to be confident in good and evil. And we want to make sure that what we do is the correct action, the correct decision. And it's not cherry picking. That's the thing, is it's not, cherry picking is an insulting term. It's a derogatory term to use to describe somebody intentionally choosing very specific things that support what they're saying. What I'm talking about could be people cherry picking, but most of the time, a lot of the time, people genuinely, truly want to do the right thing, and so they're following the example of the person that they know. And they're genuinely trying to do right by the people who are directly in that group of people. And so it's not like it's intentionally excluding other people. They're listening to the person that they know that falls in that category because that's the person they have to listen to. So it is valuable to take in multiple perspectives. It also means that we have to get comfortable sitting in a spot where multiple people can have good arguments, rooted in expertise, first-hand experience, intelligence, education, whatever it is that we use to determine whether somebody is qualified to have an especially valid opinion. There could be people who... I'm sorry, I just lost my sentence. No, I can pick this up. I'm sorry. I'm not 100%. If I ever was 100%. No. These different people whose opinions are in conflict with one another may be equally valid in being qualified to hold opinions. And so you have to accept that you can't know for sure what the right answer is. You can't know for sure what the least harmful thing to do is. You can only take as much information as you can on that and do your best. And again, broccoli, that's exactly that. I'm holding by what I say. People will listen to the people that they have access to. That's not cherry picking. Cherry picking, like I said, it's a derogatory term that people use to dismiss something that somebody's doing. There are people who take the information that is available to them and act on it. That is not something that needs to be spoken of in a derogatory fashion. I just think that it's important to remember that it is good to take in other sources of information. You will then find contradictions, and ultimately you're going to have to make a decision at the end of the day what you can live with, knowing that you're going to piss someone off. Because no matter what you do, someone is going to disagree with you, and they're going to have the valid opinion that is not the same as yours. So yeah. The thing that I struggle with, because we talked about whether or not I play Ocelot as a people pleaser, which I find deeply frustrating, and the next time somebody asks me about that, I'm going to cut them off, because that is literally a triggering thing for me to talk about. And if I say no, and I give my explanation for why, and somebody dismisses that, I'm going to have a really, really intense and difficult to control negative response to that. Because again, that's literally triggering. But it is something to think about, because I have grown up as a people pleaser, which is why for me the distinction between a people pleaser and consciously trying to make a decision to manipulate other people, there's a difference there, because one has agency and one does not have agency. As somebody who grew up as a people pleaser as a survival mechanism, I want to find the right answer that's going to make sure nobody gets mad at me. And I try to say the right thing a lot of times to try to prevent somebody from getting mad at me. So you try to like psychically figure out what to say or do that won't get them mad at you. And I'm really pretty good at picking up on what people think, how they work, what their sensitive subjects are, how to approach them. And I'm pretty good at amending what I'm saying on the fly as I go based on like the immediate response I'm getting from them. I can change, pretend that wasn't what I was saying all along, that sort of thing. But the thing is, if you try to do that all the time, no matter how good you are at it, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. I have a hard time saying I'm good at things, but just imagine like the things you've seen me correctly pick up on in this game, the little like intricacies, the little details of how people are interacting or the things that they're saying. I mean, it's not 100%, but the things that I am getting, extrapolate from there, put me in a world that I am familiar with, a culture I'm familiar with, people that I'm familiar with, a language that I'm familiar with, all of these things that I have, all of those bonuses, I get a +1 to. I'm pretty good at it. But even as someone who's pretty good at that, I'm going to get it wrong sometimes. And it sucks when someone is mad at you. But what sucks worse is when someone is mad at you for something you either didn't do or don't believe in. If somebody starts yelling at you and arguing with you on a point that isn't even the point that you hold, that sucks the most. And so something that I'm personally trying to work at is that if you're going to get it wrong, because there's always the chance that you might get it wrong, at least get it wrong doing something that you believe in. If you're going to say the wrong thing, at least have it be the thing that you intended to say. Maybe you were mistaken, or maybe the other person is overreacting, or any number of things. But if there's going to be a negative reaction, let it be valid to what you feel. So you at least aren't living with the additional discomfort of being punished for something that wasn't even what you were trying to do. So that, I mean, that can be extrapolated to what we're talking about here with different groups of people, or different people within one group of people having conflicting opinions. Where pick the one that feels right to you. Do your due diligence to research it, listen to other opinions, consider things, try to be educated and informed. But ultimately, at the end of the day, make the choice you can live with. Because if you're going to be punished for something, you should at least be punished for something you wanted to choose. So, for example, some of the questions that were being asked last time when we had the Kingdom of Conscience. Look at my memory. Look at that go. I'm so proud of me. So when we had the Kingdom of Conscience, which I was really excited about, because again, that is one that I feel qualified to talk about, because that's the one that feels closer to home for me, in all of its strengths and weaknesses. Like, there was one option that I was still trying to pick what I thought the right answer was going to be. And the thing is, no matter what answer you pick, the narration is going to have a counterpoint for you, because what they're doing with those sections is having counterpoints to every argument you could make. They're skewering everything because everything is flawed. And so I was trying to pick an answer. Maybe it was trying to pick an answer that would make me look better to all of you. Maybe it was to have an answer that I was like, oh, maybe the game will like this better. But regardless, it wasn't the answer that I would have genuinely 100% picked in my heart of hearts. And so when inevitably the narrator starts poking holes in it, I had that discomfort. Like, if you're going to yell at me, you should be yelling at me for the other one that I did pick. So it's interesting. But it's also just something to live life by. It's hard though, especially if you have cultivated extreme people pleasing. It's very hard. But it's something that I want to try to do in a video game where the consequences are lower. I mean, within the context of a video game, for the people in the video game, the consequences are much greater than most of the choices that I'm going to be confronted with in my everyday life. Life and death might be actually on the table in Disco Elysium for these fictional people who are, they're not made, we don't say they're made of pixels anymore. What do we say they're made of pixels? What do we, help me out. But as far as me and people like in the flesh and blood universe, these consequences don't actually mean anything. Do we call them polygons? Polygons. I don't know. Yeah, voxels, I was thinking, I was like, that's wrong. Polygons. I think you're right. I think that's right. Yes. Anyway, how's that? I don't even know. How long did I talk? Oh, I talked for like half an hour about that. But I think that was interesting stuff. I'm sorry. I think that's interesting. And I think it's relevant to this. So regardless of whether you are a communist or you hate communism with a passion, you know, understand that people on the other side will come from a wide spectrum of life experiences, and you can still disagree with them with every cell of your being. But it turns out you can't make generalizations that everybody in your category of people will agree with. I mean, maybe you can in some cases, but a lot of times people are not a monolith. So it's really interesting stuff. So please be nice to each other in general. I'm not always nice to people. I realize that I have not softened my discussion of politics, especially when I am being very critical of the conservative side of American politics. It's something I think about, but I think that the time for compromise is not right now. But do try to take a deep breath, and also remember that this is a video game and I am just a person playing a video game. So the decisions that I am making are not necessarily statements on what is or isn't correct. Oh, there's one more thing. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about. Will you folks forgive me if I have one more thing that I talk about here? And this is one that I think is really important. And I even have have an ask of you. Okay, this is something I've been talking to Chrono about a bit, so he'll maybe know where this is going. Another thing that I think might be contributing to the way that people react to things in this game, which is a trend that I have noticed increasingly, not just related to this game, but with things in general, and it specifically has come up a lot in the past couple of years. Mostly I encounter it when it comes to playing video games, because that's what I do on the internet. We live in a really uncertain time. We live in a time in which a lot of the traditional sources of truth and certainty are no longer considered the unshakable pillars they once were. And living in uncertainty is really, really uncomfortable and hard. It's really unpleasant. Humans would rather live in pain than uncertainty. We do better knowing what's up, even if it hurts. It's like it's better to get a diagnosis that is a bad diagnosis than to be waiting for a diagnosis, as far as your mental health and ability to withstand that, interestingly. So I say that to give context that I'm not judging the why that people do this, because I think that it's seeking steady ground to stand on in a world that does not have much steady ground to stand on. And again, as I said, people want to believe in, they want to take the right actions, and they want to hold the right opinions. We do. We do. We have a hard time holding uncertainty. It's uncomfortable. You kind of have to practice at it. So I'm going to put this in the context of games that I have played, because that's how I started noticing this. So when I was playing Hades, I started talking about the Greek gods, who I have been reading mythology, like I've been reading stories about the Greek gods since I was, listening to before I could read, and really was super like special interested in Greek mythology. So as I'm starting to stream Hades, I was really excited to talk about my thoughts and feelings on the Greek gods, my interpretation of them based on the myths that I'd read and things like that. But I found that a lot of people would then start kind of correcting me. And what was really interesting was, like, this was particularly, it came up a lot in talking about, I'll use the example of Aphrodite. I hate Aphrodite. She's really bitchy. I can swear on this stream. And so, like, I kind of, like, delight in thinking that Aphrodite is bitchy and being like, oh no, there she is again. And yeah, I'm used to the idea that everybody has their own interpretation, and that it depends on which myths or whatever you're most familiar with. And I know that these they're as characters, as figures, they have changed over history. But I found that people kept correcting, here we go again, thanks boys, kept correcting my interpretation of Aphrodite in the exact same way, citing the exact same thing, saying the same examples. And I was like, that's really weird, because you guys come from different backgrounds. And eventually, it came out that there was one particular video that everybody had watched that was this deep dive of an expert type person or something on Greek mythology. And they had focused on Aphrodite, I guess. And so all of these different people that I was talking to were repeating what this video had said about this one person's study and deep dive into Aphrodite. Well, I'm not trying to claim that I'm a classic scholar. I've done some reading and I've done some research, and I absolutely believe this person had done a great deal of research. So it's not a random video essay. I'm sure it's a very well researched, very well backed up video essay. But at the same time, especially, and like, these are like smart, intelligent, thoughtful people who are saying these things, because for them now, when they think of Aphrodite, they think of what this video said about Aphrodite. I don't care what that video has to say about Aphrodite. My interest in Aphrodite is what I think about Aphrodite, and that can be colored and changed and shifted as I gain more information, or I can say, okay, well, that's cool, and I can see that it's actually, you know, there's more to it than I knew when I came up with my original opinions, so I can hold my opinion and my knowledge about it separate. But like, I'm over here trying to have my own experience and talk about my own experience. And if I have a friend who's like, well, I always really liked Aphrodite because in the stories that I read, I blah, blah, blah. Or if somebody was like, you know, I think that Aphrodite is maligned unfairly in these things. And then we start talking about it and having this conversation. Like, that's interesting to me. And if people are like, well, I did a lot of reading and this is what a lot of reading has taught me, that's interesting too. But to suddenly have multiple people with multiple backgrounds saying the exact same thing because of this one video made me really uncomfortable. And something I noticed when Deltarune, so I've talked about how, like, playing this game, I'm experiencing something written by writers whose their souls are not the same color as mine, essentially, but Toby Fox's is. That's a presumptuous thing for me to say, but I stand by it. When I play his games, I feel like I understand him, except that I don't have Homestuck in my DNA. But otherwise, if I'd had Homestuck in my DNA, maybe I would have turned out to be the next Toby Fox. Not like actually in the creating of things. He's brilliant and good at what he creates, but maybe that would have been like the one last bit of alignment. But something that I find like felt kind of uncomfortable there is that I'm playing through that game as I played through this game, trying to have my own experience, trying to figure it out for myself. And unlike this game, where I think there's definitely things that I'm missing, especially like when it comes to historical background, I don't have that. I'm not a historian. I don't know. There's a lot of things where I'm like, oh, I bet if I knew more about the real world, I would get something else out of this. And I don't have that. I don't have that problem with Toby Fox games. I feel like I can pick up what he's putting down on like a really good level. And I like to talk about it. I like to think through it. I like to guess, yes, and piece together what he's doing and why and how. It's great fun. I super, super, super love Deltarune. And folks are really excited about me playing through chapter 2. And part of that is so they can send me like fan art of the characters that won't be a spoiler to me anymore because I played that chapter. And that's great. I love it. But one of the things that I realized is that people wanted me to have played it so that I could then watch the videos and hear what the fan theories were. And I was like, I don't care what the fan theories are. I don't want to pick them up. I have my own theories. So I'll sit down and have conversations with friends individually about what we think is going on with Deltarune, which is really interesting. I love that. That's great fun. But like, I don't watch fan theory videos because I don't want to overwrite my own brain with other people's ideas. And I used to think the problem was that I am like uniquely susceptible to having my opinions and feelings overwritten for the same reason that I'm really good at people pleasing. But I've come to the conclusion that this is actually maybe more widespread than just my susceptible brain. Maybe a lot of people's brains are susceptible to this, and I just happen to be aware of the fact that this is a problem. And it's because it's not an Undertale fandom reaction, because the same thing happened with Hades and Greek mythology. And I think to some degree, there may be discomfort with people not liking the actions or decisions or things that I do in this game because it doesn't line up with whatever else they've seen or done or read. Like, there's obviously the discomfort I've described of me playing differently from you and your personal experience in this highly personalized game experience. Like, that's obviously going to be part of it, but I also think part of it is that I think that it's also possible that when I say a thing that doesn't align with what the experts are supposed to say, it's like when I complained about The World Revolving from Deltarune. I didn't like that song. Yes, I wound up covering it because I trolled myself on April Fools because I think I'm funny. I thought I was so funny. Oh my god. A Lauren who thinks she's got something funny and clever is just ridiculous. But But, like, there were people who were really, really uncomfortable with me talking about it. Like, really, really uncomfortable. Because I would sit down and talk about, like, this is bad about it. It doesn't have a strong driving melody. It doesn't have this. It's got this going on. And, like, they were really upset about it. And it was because they thought of me as being somebody who had some degree of expertise in music. And therefore they thought, on some level, felt as though I was telling them that their opinion was invalid. And I'm like, no. I can disagree with it and talk about why I think this song sucks. But at the end of the day, I'm just one person. And we need to have the comfort and ability to say, I disagree with this person. Even if it's somebody who thinks Lauren generally knows what she's talking about a lot of times. Like, if you think that generally you agree with me about things a lot, great. But that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong if I say a thing and you're like, that doesn't sound right. Okay, that's fine. Like, I want you all to be able to disagree with me and say, Lauren's wrong on this. Or double check it. Go compare it against not one other source, but like 3 other sources. You know? A variety of sources, but vet your sources. Make sure they're good sources. Go to Wikipedia and actually check the sources on Wikipedia. You know? And yes, please don't attack me personally. I'd rather that not happen. But I just in general, I think that there is a problem where I think that we're desperately looking for a feeling of confidence that things can be right and known, that there can be truth. And so we're trying to find speakers of truth. We can't necessarily find speakers of truth in religion anymore. We can't necessarily find speakers of truth in politics and government. There's not the divine, you know, the divine right of kings where like that is correct and that is right and that's how it's supposed to be, so don't question it. You know, when you start questioning everything, it's scary, because when everything can be questioned, nothing can be known, and that's uncomfortable. You have to learn to tolerate. You have to develop a tolerance, build up a tolerance, an ability to stand and live in a space that feels that way, and it's very uncomfortable. And so in our quest, I think, to find truth that we can stand on, so there can be some solid ground under us, I think we look for truth tellers. We look for truth speakers. I guess truth teller, I think, has a different connotation. I'm not a truth speaker. I'm just one person who has a lot of thoughts and a lot of opinions. I do research on things. I do a lot of reading. I think through things a lot. My brain is flawed. My sources are not, you know, not universal. So would I love for you to consider the things that I say? Yes, sure. Why not? Let's stroke my ego and say Lauren is good at storytelling. So we'll take what she says about storytelling as a likely truth. Maybe something that has basis and is worth considering. But never take anything that I say as an absolute truth that you should listen to. And if I say something that goes against your gut in a really deeply uncomfortable way, sit there, listen to it, think about it, maybe explore it a little bit. It's okay to disagree with me. It's okay to disagree with other people. It's okay to take what other people say and be like, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, that's one more point to think about. But please try as best you can. Nobody is such an expert that their thoughts and feelings and opinions and experiences on a matter, any matter, should be lifted wholesale from what they say and placed inside your own mind. You should always question what everyone says to some degree. You can cobble together something from a bunch of different experts, but also try to leave room for your own feelings, your own experiences, the people you know, the life you have, the truths that you believe in. Please. All right. I've made it to like an hour. Now we can start the game. I hope you're all right with that. That's just one that I've got really big feelings about. And I've been thinking about it a lot because it's been coming up a lot with trying to figure out what is going on with this game. But also things have been going on with things besides this game. So, oh no. A third time. Oh, this is cursed, Lauren. This is cursed. I'm sorry, folks. All right, well, we're actually going to start the game. We're actually going to play the game now. We got to talk to Kim. The boys need to stretch. They're getting ready for me to talk to Kim. But yeah. Because I am a writer and a storyteller, I want to kind of explore some of these concerns in stories that I'm writing. JSNLV, thank you for subscribing again, friend. Thank you. I appreciate your support, everybody. Although I appreciate support, not just like subscribing support, but just like being here, listening to me, putting up with my long-winded rambles, things like that. Half man, half rubber band. Oh man, I mean it is mermaid. They can be eels. I really want to draw a mermaid for mermaid. I'm gonna see if I can do at least one. Oh, is it Jason Love? Oh my god, eels. Yes, Night in the Woods. See, like, I learned a lot from Scott Benson in Night in the Woods. I did. He changed my worldview to some degree. But I did not take everything that he said. You know, I took pieces of it and I looked at it and I cross-referenced it with other things and went and did some exploration. And sometimes I disagree with him and sometimes I agree with him, and that's as it should be. Nobody is so smart and clever and thoughtful and good that they are right all the time. Oh, mermaid is people draw mermaids for the month of May. I really like mermaids, so I should draw one. Also, one tiny thing that I'm going to touch on here and then not touch on it again. I broke up with my girlfriend this week because it was not the right relationship for me. She's lovely. I'm okay, but just so we just know that we won't be hearing Lauren talk about girlfriend. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and dive on into the game now. I might return to some of these things I've been talking about, but maybe I will create a story and then you can all see Lauren trying to engage with these things in the form of fiction of sorts. Because apparently I'm getting my brain back, which means that I can write again, maybe. Alright, so we're back to this game. Okay, we'll just take a moment. I had a lot of feelings about Wandersong. It was really good. And the bard hit home in ways I did not expect. We had things in common that I did not expect. And the game skewers those things. And I was like, oh my god, just call me out by name, why don't you? The voice of the bard is one of my dear friends. So when because my friend is him, the bard is not. But when he posted about the fact that there was going to be this plushie, I was like, oh my god, I need to have my own little mini John Robert. So yes, no spoilers for Wandersong, but it is very good. It is very, very good. I definitely recommend it. You think it's just going to be a silly, funny, haha game, but it has a lot more depth and a lot more soul than you expect. And it goes places. Oh, does it go places? I like games that go places. So speaking of going places, so we have talked to Kingdom of Conscience, Brain, and I was so called out. It's good. But prior to that, we tried talking to Joyce, and Joyce was basically like, I will spill the beans and tell you trade secrets, but I have to know that you're legit and a cop first. So you need to give me your badges. And Ocelot's like, shoot. That's not good. And then he had a brilliant flash of inspiration. Perhaps I could try to do a favor for Joyce and she'll make an exception for this. And so she asked me to try to figure out what exactly is going on when I go into the dock. I'm pointing in the direction on the screen. The dock is that way. It's that way. It's that way. You know? She asked Ocelot to be a narc. Yes, okay. If we want to put it in like blunt terms, yes. And Kim was like, a word, please, before you go being an narc for somebody who is not a cop. We need to talk about this. So. Anyway, that's why there's the bouncing talkie talk. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, no, you can see my mouse. Okay. The bouncing talkie talk is right here. So let's get yelled at by our smart partner. You ready?
This is not going quite as I hoped it would, Detective.
Oh no. I've let him down. That's unacceptable. He's the smarter. Yes, he is. Oh no, I'm sorry, Kim. The lieutenant's voice is hushed. So did I fail to clown shoes? You gotta let me know before it gets this bad, Kim. So 1, how did you hope it would go? That's the only question, the only option I have.
Honestly, I was expecting you to use your unorthodox technique to keep her off balance and, you know, not volunteer us to be her henchman.
I mean, fair. Okay, so I can either say, oh, so we're henchmen now? Or, really? I thought it was going so well. I'm going to say, oh, so we're henchmen now. Playing kind of dumb. Kind of, because it did kind of get... Mostly I wanted to kind of see what she was going to ask for. I'm sorry if I did damage to Kim. Unorthodox technique to keep her off balance. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sorry, Kim. I just mostly want to know what she was... Well, we'll see. I'm going to say, oh, so we're henchmen now.
This woman is running circles around us. She might have known about your misplaced badge all along, or she's simply an adept improviser. Either way, we've played straight into her hands.
Oh, so he thinks that she was trying to do that all along. Oh. Oh, so she saw opportunity. Okay. Sorry about that.
He doesn't let it show, but there is a limit to how much the consequences of your unprofessional behavior can cost the investigation.
Oh, man. I can say, I'm sorry for putting us in this situation. I'll handle it. Her proposal was likely part of her design. This all is. What do you propose? That we don't investigate the drug trafficking? Or we could just, you know, find my badge. Or let's get back to her then. The thing is, I do want to apologize to him. And make it better, but I do want to know a bit more. I want to know what he wants. So the first one feels to me like it's begging Kim. It's basically trying to make Kim not mad at you. The second one sounds like he's really together. And it makes it sound like he's in on what Kim is in on. In a way that I'm not. Yeah, you know, Kim told us to clown shoes, but we went in a direction he didn't want. I did not see the fact that maybe she was leading us to something like that in the first place. God damn it. All right. So we're trying to I'm trying to get her to lower her guard. She's trying to butter us up by being funny and personable. She doesn't have to try to meet us where we are. But she's one of everybody's favorites NPCs. Apparently everybody just loves Joyce for some reason. And she is very funny. She has really good dialogue. And she's mostly in charge of the situation. Occasionally, we do manage to get her. But she wants you to be indebted to her. So she is not just... we went to this with an agenda. I did not. I stupidly, perhaps, did not ask myself what agenda she was bringing to the conversation. Because so often when we play video games, NPCs are characters who exist for our own benefit. They exist to give the player something, an experience, a tool, a quest, whatever the case may be. It is so seldom in video games that NPCs have agency and agenda that is not solely serving the plot and the experience that the player is supposed to have. So when you're writing, one of the things you're supposed to do with your characters is think about what does this character want and how are they trying to get it. And when you write dialogue between two characters, you're supposed to think to yourself, what do each of these people want out of the conversation, and have that color what they say. It's very easy to forget that or to put that aside. And a lot of times, like, we kind of don't need it, because ultimately, as long as you're bringing the audience on a fun enough adventure and you make the character feel real enough, it doesn't matter if the purpose of the character is to progress the audience's experience. And usually you're not engaging in a battle of conversation with somebody. So, okay, I take that back. In RPGs, usually the bad guy has an agenda. But usually when you encounter the bad guy's agenda, that agenda involves punching you in the face with their sword or their gun. And then you try to stop that. But it's a very clear agenda. The villain is trying to kill you. And you try to kill the villain. Pretty straightforward agendas. So when that's subverted, where you have combat and the character's not, the opponent is not actually trying to kill you, that is such the expectation that something that subverts that is very surprising. I can think of a particular game offhand. I will not spoil for folks in case somebody hasn't played it, but that does happen very memorably early on in a game that I love. But so I'm used to thinking about characters having extremely clear, direct gameplay related agendas. Joyce has been fighting back. The joke is that this is a boss fight. The joke is that, oh, I gotta save and rest up because there's a big paragraph coming up. No, seriously. This is a boss fight. We've been taking turns trying to get what we wanted out of each other, and she fucking won. She wanted to get something out of me and prevent me from getting something out of her. And so she could get something out of me, or rather I could get something out of her, but she'll still have won because it'll have been on her terms. I did not even think about it like that. To be fair, yes, Ocelot is hungover, doesn't know what's going on. Ocelot and Kim don't yet know each other very well, so Kim can say clown shoes this one, and Ocelot can try to clown shoes. But neither Ocelot nor I know exactly what kind of clown shoes to wear, or when to clown shoes, or how much to clown shoes. So it's, we are at a disadvantage. So this is not, oh shoot, I gotta load my last save. I forgot. I didn't realize that this was like a scripted loss, or that this fight becomes harder if you use magic or whatever. It's not quite like that. It works. It fits in character, and it leads to this interesting conflict with Kim here. But that's absolutely what happened. She totally played me. She had an agenda. I did not think about what her agenda was going to be. I did not think about what she was going to try to get out of it. Because dialogue in video games, dialogue options are never like that. That's never how it works. It's always, let me see if I can figure out the right things to say to unlock the information I want. Right? Because I've played a lot of word-based games. And it's always like a dialogue tree to either can I convince you to join me, or can I convince you to give me the information that I want. So it's picking the right answers. You don't even ever have to think about what they're trying to do to you, because they're not trying to do anything to you. That's great. That's so interesting. And this is so early on in the game too. I'm nervous about what some of my and the fact that it's like real world politics adds layers of complexity to it. Because then you bring in your own feelings and opinions about capitalism, for example, are going to affect what you're willing to say to her and how you're going to respond to her. Man. Yeah, I guess games can be multiple choices, and it's fine. It's fine, because that fits what they are. Unless they're pretending that there's something that they're not, and then I will make fun of them for the rest of eternity. One of these days, maybe I'll play a BioWare game and not feel that way about it. Maybe. I hear that Jade Empire might be the best for that. Anyway. I think. Anyway. I'm sorry. And again, like I said, like, there's plenty of folks who have very sophisticated taste and very, like, thoughtful brains and lots of experience and knowledge and expertise who love BioWare games and think they're super well written. I do not understand it, and I cannot understand it. But their opinions are valid. My opinions are valid. Take what you will from my constant putting down of BioWare. Oh, man. And yeah, I think the only way they can get away with it in this game is because the entirety of the game is the dialogue. So this is the boss fight. They don't have to worry about building out mechanics or bullet hells or anything like that. Like, they just have to script the things that she says. All right. So I'm definitely not going to pick answer number 4. I don't like that. That doesn't feel like the kind of ocelot that I'm playing. All right. So my guy feels bad and he's apologized in the past for things, but he's also not currently kicked in the stomach. And Kim is talking to him like a professional to another professional. So having just thought through this all being actually part of her, I'm sorry, Kim, I didn't think about this. But maybe Ocelot has something going on in here. Maybe his brain has something going on here that I don't know. Because for me, this is like, damn it, she's better than me. She's slippery. She's on top now. I don't know if that's what Ocelot means by it, but that's what I would mean by this if I picked this. I think this one's more interesting than this too. Let's see.
Yes. Knowing this does not really change our position, however.
Ah, okay. Okay. Kim is not impressed with me understanding that. All right. I'm going to say I'm sorry for putting us in this situation. I'll handle it.
I'm sure you will, detective.
Kim is like, yes, I'm not going to make you feel... Notice he's not trying to reassure me. He's not in a way... I mean, he literally just said reassuring words, but the point of this is not to make me feel better and to take away my discomfort. This is an acknowledgement, not a reassurance. It sounds like reassurance, but it's not. You know? Because if you're trying to reassure someone, then you're going to say the thing that is going to take away the discomfort that they have. And he does not in any way. Like, he lets me sit with that. He lets me feel with that. Like, if he wanted to make me feel better about it, he would be like, you know, what's done is done, but we've got this together or something like that. Like, we'll figure it out. Instead, he gives me empty reassurance. That's okay. That's okay, Kim. I am also disappointed in myself for not seeing through. I don't know. Literally, Ocelot was hungover and my brain was literally unwell. So we came at this with a handicap. But also, I don't know that would have occurred to me if I hadn't. We'll never know. We'll never know. Oh, man. Okay, so what do you propose? That we don't investigate the drug trafficking? Because part of why I was interested in kind of opening is because, like, I want to know what's going on with the drug trafficking. Figure out what's actually happening. Now, granted, I would probably try to get to the bottom of that anyway, or try to sleuth that out anyway, because that's how I roll. But...
No. If there is reasonable suspicion, we must investigate. Otherwise, she could claim we are siding with the Union, or that we are on their take. We'd never hear the end of it.
Okay, so now we're stuck researching it because we've been told about it by her. Got it.
What I propose is, we ask her, then we investigate, briefly. But do not share the outcome of this investigation with her. We tell her it's done and demand for her information on the lynching.
I don't know that she's actually going to... I don't know that she'll take that, Kim. I think we're going to have to give her something if... I mean, or we're going to give her my badge. That is interesting that she asked for the badge. That is weird. Like, she makes it sound good, Where she's like, oh, well, but I have to know that I can trust you. But, like, you know that we're cops. You recognize us as cops to start with. You were trying to... Did you know? Did you know? Did she know about this in advance? There's no chat hat. Do not tell me. Do not tell me. Did she know? Has she heard? Does she have moles? Somewhere? She's got to. She's got to have somebody here who's on her side. I mean... Also, Ocelot could have drunkenly run around yelling about how he didn't have his badge, and we wouldn't know if he did that yesterday. So I think she might have been trying to... That might have been a little bit of entrapment that we witnessed. Alright. We could just find my badge.
Oh, that would be fantastic, but do we have the time? The world is large and your badge is 8 by 6 centimeters.
Is that the same size as like a normal, like, driver's license? Or what? I'm gonna look at, sorry. Hold on. I'm gonna, 8 centimeters to inches. Okay, so that's about 3 3.25 inches. It's like, yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. It's just, this is good to be able to visualize what it is that I'm looking for so I can start to imagine where it might be. Well, because like, it's like, is it going to be like a, sheriff's badge? Like, what, I don't know exactly what the badge is. I want to know what the badge is. I guess maybe, is it the thing that's stuck to his jacket? I just assumed that was part of his jacket. He's got this circle thing. Am I supposed to have one of those and I lost that? I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out. It's good to know. Good to know what I'm looking for.
The situation might have changed drastically by the time you locate it. Time is of the essence.
Okay.
You could request a new one from the station, but that would literally take months.
That's true. Okay, that's fair. Alright. It does kind of look like a Pokeball. It really does. Let's get back to her then. Okay, so we'll say we'll look into it as part of the investigation. But we're not going to agree to anything per se. Let's see if I can do this. Sorry, Kim. What's going on with my brain space over here? Oh, I can't take the Kingdom of Conscience because I don't have enough points in brain. -2 half-light. What is half-light? Calm water. What is half-light? Hold on. Oh. You become really, really chill. Well, fortunately, I have no half-light to begin with. So, it's fine. I'm just chill. I'm chill. Alright, let's do this. All the portraits are good and very disturbing. Okay. I'm like... It's funny, I'm a little bit uncomfortable because I'm used to, like, when I play video games, I don't have any expectation of myself to be any good at them. So it's like, if I go in to charge a boss fight and I get my butt kicked, I'm not, like, humiliated about it because I've spent so long being bad at video games that I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay, that figures. We looked at the New Thought last time. Didn't we? Did we not look at the did we not? Maybe I was shutting down. Oh, maybe I didn't actually. No, you're right. I didn't. Okay, hold on. Kingdom of Conscience. Heartache is powerful, but democracy is subtle. Incrementally, you begin to notice a change in the weather. When it snows, the flakes are softer when they stick to your worry-worn forehead. When it rains, the rain is warmer. Democracy is coming to the administrative region. The ideals of DeLorean humanism are reinstating themselves. How can they not? These are the ideals of the Coalition and the Moralist International. Those guys are signal blue. And they're not only good, they're also powerful. What will it be like once their nuanced plans have been realized? Whew, I don't know, man. I would love to internalize that and see what happens. Oh, that's not going to take very long. An hour and a half. Interesting. Okay. Well, we'll hatch that later. But I am not accustomed to being bad at people. So I'm like, oh no, I say that I have some skill with people and things like this, and I'm going to just completely tank this conversation. It's fine, right? It's not like you win this game by picking the right answers, because this isn't a multiple choice test. This is an experience that you're having with no real right or wrong answer, just paths that you're taking and the consequences along those paths for the actions that you've taken. It's probably good for me.
You're back. Good. What can I help you with?
Kim said that we're going to say that we'll do it. I should have probably started with this clown shoes thing to really throw her off, but I didn't. Oh well, that's fine. I did the decisions that I did. I don't understand the mechanics. It's true. I don't understand quite how things work. It's true. It's fine. It's all right. I just have to have some ability to tolerate discomfort here. Well, the thing is, like, I could have asked this in a different order, and maybe if I'd thrown her off enough earlier, she wouldn't have been able to entrap us into asking about the human trafficking. Although the truth is that they're asking about drug trafficking, I'm sorry. There could very well be human trafficking involved as well. We'll find out, I'm sure. The thing is, that might very well be a section of the conversation that to some degree is inevitable anyway. Like, I don't even know that I did it wrong. Like, it may very well be that that you're going to get that. She's going to ask you that. Kim is going to get mad at you. I don't even know. I don't know. So it's hard to say. So I'm just gonna go for it. I'm going to ask her about the alleged drug trafficking before I forget what Kim told me to do. We'll get more information because Kim said that we have to do this now.
It's quite straightforward. Someone is using Terminal B to smuggle raw ingredients from the Samar and Isola into Revachol with the Union's blessing. Wild Pines has suspected it for years.
Okay, so I have to point out that she said raw ingredients, because raw ingredients has that same, I think it's a glottal stop is the term for it in English, and in American English, in American English when we speak, we have to like cut ourselves off between raw, because the W doesn't actually make a sound. It's just the ah. So it's just an ah, just a vowel with no consonant at the end. And then the next word, ingredients, also starts with a vowel, no consonant. So again, because it's a British actor, she has to put an R in there so that she can flow the words together. Raw ingredients, which I think is really interesting, because it's not something that I realized that happened until I started proofing audiobooks, and some of the narrators were British, and I noticed that they were doing that, and eventually realized that that's just how they speak and not a thing that I needed to mark as a mispronunciation. It's interesting stuff. All right, sorry, I've like been trying to figure out how and where and stuff to put my camera. Oh, I didn't know that the glottal stop got turned into a mocking meme. I don't know anything about anything, apparently. I don't know memes. I don't keep up with what's cool. All right. Right. Alleged drug trafficking. Smuggle raw ingredients from the Samar and Isola to Revachol with the Union's blessing. Okay.
Ingredients for what, ma'am?
Kim sounds so mild here. Yeah, I know what I don't pay attention to memes.
Meth and dextroamphetamine, GBL, and various synthetic psychedelics. Honestly, it might be quicker to say what you can't make from the stuff.
Dextroamphetamine I haven't heard of, and I don't know what GBL is. So I don't know if those are real world drugs or not. What can't you make from raw ingredients? Is that really how drugs work? Can you make multiple drugs with one raw ingredient? I don't know. Gay by lesbian, maybe. Dextroamphetamine is a real thing? Okay. Because I know methamphetamine. That I've heard before. Okay. Oh, dextroamphetamine is an Adderall. Okay. Interesting. Oh, opium. Oh, right. Actually, I vaguely knew about that. I grew up in a suburban place that had a major heroin problem. Apparently. And I seem to recall that's actually related to other kinds of drugs under different names. So, okay. So let me get this straight. The materials come from Samara to Revachol through the terminal.
Yes. After they clear the terminal, we lose track. The actual production is taking place at various sites in and around Jamrock Quarter, north of here.
Okay.
Wildpine seems to be well apprised of the local drug trade, ma'am. Do you mean to say the Union also produces the product? Sells drugs, I mean?
I think Kim is trying to get her to make an accusation here so that we can weaken our belief in what she says.
We're in logistics. It's our business to know. And no. As far as the company knows, the Union does not produce it. They transport the ingredients for a cut.
Okay. All right. Do you want us to investigate?
Yes, but you won't get anything out of Evrat and the Dockworkers Union. Still, every chain has its weak link.
That's Ocelot. That's Ocelot she's talking about right there. She raises her bony finger. Yes. I can find the weak link. I'll be looking for the weak link, and apparently I am the weak link.
The handoff. The motor lorries at the roundabout.
Oh, she's pointing. Okay. Okay. I don't want her to think that I'm smart and onto things here. So she's pointing at the things. Because there's either the lorries, which are trucks, right? And am I going to need bolt cutters for this? Alright. So I can either say the trucks, or am I going to need bolt cutters for this? Which seems a bit more clown shoes, so I'm going to choose it.
Unlikely, officer. I'm talking about the lorries. Once the ingredients reach Jamrock, they're distributed to a network of local manufacturers, well beyond our grasp. But in transit, they may be vulnerable.
Alright. Because at this point, I want her to underestimate me, and I want to choose the clown shoes options instead of having her think I'm smart. As nice as it is to have a smart person be like, well done, you're so observant, I don't actually want Joyce to think I am observant. So she's explaining that they're not going to be cutting through a chain with bolt cutters. But we're going to look at the trucks. We're going to talk to the truckers.
Perhaps you've noticed that a number of lorries are tangled in a traffic jam at the roundabout just now. Interview the drivers who are still hanging about. One of them might be waiting for a crucial shipment.
She gives you a knowing look. Please do not make me do anything to my nice friend over there whose name I have forgotten.
I'll be explicit. If you find this driver, I will share company secrets with you.
It's going to be the nice man. I don't want to turn him over. Nope.
You'll be indebted to her, in a way, but one step ahead of the Union in another.
Tommy, yes. Okay. Why didn't you come to the RCM earlier?
We did, on more than one occasion. Apparently, there's some sort of inter-precinct disagreement about whose jurisdiction this area falls under.
So on her, sheet of, on her agenda of things that she wants to do, make a cop investigate this. is on that list and has been on that list. So when she sees cops and cops come up to her and are like, hi, she's like, okay, well, there's a thing that I need to ask cops to do because we've been trying to ask cops to do that. So that is something that she's had in mind all along, is how do I get them to do this thing in particular? Got it.
We know the company has launched its own probe into the union's alleged involvement. We also know it's come up empty. It's not just the RCM. No one's been able to find any hard evidence.
Oh. Thank you, Kim. Okay, so Joyce is once again trying to get through to me here. So Joyce is giving me incomplete facts. Joyce is getting me to think like, oh, well, we've been trying to get the cops to do the right thing, but they just can't agree whose turn it is, so nobody's doing it. Then Kim's like, actually, you tried to do this, and we've tried to do this, and everybody's tried to do this already. But you see, like, the story that she's telling there is a story that makes it seem like it's not her fault, it's not her side's fault, it's entirely on the group of people I belong to try to make this right. Oh, how embarrassing that the cops have too much infighting to be able to handle this situation. You know, like she's trying, what she's saying, like, sets it up so that either I could have the embarrassment of, oh shoot, that's my team that's supposed to be doing this and we failed. Oh, don't worry, ma'am, I'll get on it. Or like that I feel like, oh yeah, she's being so reasonable, they've tried. Well, don't worry, ma'am, I've got this. And Kim is like, you're withholding information here.
Well, here's your chance, officers.
What proof do you have that the union is involved?
How do you think they're financing this strike? There are thousands of unpaid dock workers going strong for the 4th month straight.
There was a shakedown of local businesses preceding the strike. Many were squeezed to bankruptcy to fund it.
Oh my god. Oh, Kim. So what Kim is doing here is tanking? Kim has pulled me aside and been like, you are too low level and you are going to lose this fight. Because he had been stepping back and letting me take the lead so I could clown shoes, doing an atypical method so that she wouldn't be able to do what she did. But that wasn't working. So he has stepped up because he wasn't taking such a, like, he wasn't cutting off everything that she said prior to this. So he's stepping in and pointing out all of the things that she's not saying. So presumably in the first round of conversation with Joyce, or first 2 rounds, if this is Lauren that we're talking about, but prior to this, the conversation with Joyce, presumably, there were also levels of things that she was leaving out that Kim wasn't calling her out on, because calling her out on is taking the offense. You know, he's stepping up now and saying, like, I see what you're doing. I see you're coming for us, and I'm holding you back. Which he didn't want to do before. This is not the tactic he wanted. He wanted it to be wackadoodle clown shoes, man. And his nice, mild-mannered partner who's just like, look, this is what I've got to deal with, but he gets the job done. So Kim has changed his negotiating tactic, I feel, here. So I'm too excited about the rhetoric of this situation to address the content of the conversation. So Kim has no love for the union, no respect for the union. And I am inclined to trust Kim and listen to Kim. There's just something about him that seems very trustworthy and likable now that, like, I've gotten through, like, a few conversations with him that have won me over. So this does paint a picture of a union that's not good, guys. A shakedown of local businesses preceding the strike. Many were squeezed to bankruptcy to fund it. So there's a number of businesses that are not there anymore. Perhaps they went under in an effort to fund this strike. That's interesting, because you think about shaking down local businesses. That's such an organized crime, like crime family thing to do, as opposed to what ideally happens with unions, which is that they have a strike fund. a form of mutual aid, so that they are prepared to take care of their people. And so other people who are perhaps affiliated with the union but not directly in it can contribute to the strike fund, that sort of thing. Which is a thing you can do, by the way, if you are like, for example, in the US watching some of the strikes that have been happening. You can look for some of the unions and the groups that are striking there and see if they have a strike fund that you could contribute to. I'm pretty sure that that's an option. If you've got the funds and are trying to figure out what to do with them.
With all due respect to these desert cacti, the contents of a few cash registers cannot provide for 2,000 men. The local businesses can scarcely provide for themselves.
She does not believe this. So she and Kim are fighting, and I'm participating. I'm kind of worried about pulling the whole thing down. So you think the strike is being funded with source ingredients for drugs?
Precisely. Smuggled out of that very gate at night, most likely, then loaded onto lorries and driven to Jamrock. You simply need to find one driver who will open up to you.
It's gonna be Tommy because he's just so likable. I don't like that.
It sounds like she tried looking into it herself, though she's clearly not the type your typical lorry man would confide in.
Oh, that's true. I wonder what tactics she would have used. I'm not going to say this. We already have some suspicions that one of the drivers was present at the lynching because I don't want to give her information. I want to get information from her, but I don't want to give her anything. Okay. I'm going to say it's no coincidence the lorries are stranded there like that, is it? Because this is kind of confirming what she's saying rather than giving her anything.
No. We asked East Motor Track to raise the drawbridge. The road company is a partner of one of our subsidiaries. However...
She pauses, looking to the sea. Oh! 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 So they've set up the trap, and so she's ostensibly here to negotiate through the strike, but she's actually been sent here to try to investigate some of this so that they can cut off the union's funding, or perhaps have, I guess, some sort of legal thing to pin the union with. I don't know exactly how that would work in this setting, in this situation, but to take down the union. And so that's part of what she's doing. She's like, okay, well, if you're going to strike, we're going to try to see what we can do to weaken you for good. So we'll do this to try to see what we can figure out to get to the bottom of the drugs that we think we can either get you in trouble legally, or we can just cut off your money supply or something like that. And then she, being a very clever person, has been looking at all of the pieces on the board, trying to figure out what she can possibly do. And in waltz these two cops, including this one guy who's just completely a mess. But decently okay at talking to people sometimes. She could totally use him. So yeah, we walked right into that one.
This is a limited time opportunity. Once the complaint has been processed by the Trade Committee, they'll have no choice but to lower the drawbridge, and the operation will continue.
She looks north. Okay, so I have a finite amount of time to complete this task.
Thousands of liters of raw ingredients will pour onto the streets of Revachol. Not the east across the river, but the west. The vulnerable, the weary.
And now she's going to make an emotional plea. Not excessively, because that would not be plausible. Like there's no way that a person like her would really be very impassioned. But she'll have a degree of how much she can convey that sounds legitimate, or she'll have a way of couching it to try to make it sound more real, that she cares, and that she thinks I should care.
Well, at least this solves one mystery.
And Kim is just like, whatever. So we found out that you're responsible for this one thing that we wondered about. He's good.
What is that, Lieutenant?
I mean, it solves the mystery of why the trucks are there, I guess. Also, it kind of solves the mystery of why she decided to entrap us this way.
Why I had to call East Motor Tract and beg them to open a drawbridge for me. I'd wondered since I first drove in, on my motor carriage.
Where are you going with this, Kim?
I am sorry for the inconvenience, Lieutenant Kisaragi, but we need them trapped here. This is a unique opportunity. I'm sure you understand.
It's very interesting. So he's just trying to not... Basically showing that whatever she's saying or doing is not getting through to him. He's unmoved. He's like, you've even personally inconvenienced me with this move of yours. Alright. I'm going to try to ask her about the universe before I say I've made up my mind about the smuggling investigation. So I'm going to say, actually, let's discuss something else for now.
She simply nods.
I'm going to ask her to give me a lowdown on this reality we're in. Let's see how this is.
This reality.
She pulls her hood closer around her neck.
Yes, reality is your side case.
Yes, reality is, it's the case that I'm trying to learn about reality on the side of trying to solve this.
An experimental side case.
I am conducting a personal investigation into the world I find myself in, or it's related to that medical episode. I have trouble remembering even the most basic terms of reality, or no time to explain, just give me the lowdown, or actually, now is not a good time for a reality lowdown, maybe later. Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. I am conducting personal investigation into the world I find myself in. Yes, lowdown clown shoes. Maybe. Because she could just very easily be like, we don't really have time for that. Whereas if I say this medical episode, she'll be like, oh dear, this is interesting. And she might play along. I don't know if there's anything good from that. But if I can get her to further underestimate me, and then I actually am not total clown shoes all the time, especially because I've got Kim on my side, it would be good for her to underestimate me. I just have to make sure that I don't actually step on another trap in my... Like, I'm basically fumbling around showing off how clumsy I am. I just have to not actually step on something bad along the way. You know? All right, let's do the medical episode one. It's related to that medical episode. I have trouble remembering even the most basic terms of reality.
Ah, yes. The episode. Sounds like an acute case of encephalopathy, now that I think of it.
Okay. That just sounds like it has something to do with your head. Your head has problems. But I'm sure that somebody who was better equipped with medical terminology could take that word apart better. She puts down her thermal cup and looks at you.
Don't be phased, madame. He functions perfectly well. He only needs a lowdown on all of reality.
Phased is a word that I spelled wrong up until like the past couple of years. Don't be phased. Unphased. I spelled it like P-H-A. It's not right. It's F-A-Z. Z. Okay, so it is your head is bad. Brain damage. I'm really good at words. Well, because I know apathy means like has like a medical condition of harm, and I know that cephalo like that has to do with your head. So You can end unfazed in Star Trek, but it's these different things. Your head bad. Yes. Your head bad. That is correct. Yes. And okay. So I've told you I'm a huge nerd, right? And I was on my high school's literary criticism team. We were the acephalous equestrians because acephalous can be used as a term, a literary term used to describe the first syllable of a foot having been cut off. In poetry, for example, if you would expect there to be a syllable at the beginning and it's not there, that's acephalous. Headless. So acephalous equestrians, we were the headless horsemen. We were so proud of ourselves. I'm pretty sure that was my fault. Oh, man. Don't let your kids be on their high school literary criticism team or they'll grow up like this. Yes. But also cephalopod, which does mean head, foot. Like pod, like podiatrist. Not to be confused with pediatrician. Oh, man. Is that Latin or Greek roots? Because I don't know. I just know the roots. I don't know the origins. All right. Give me a lowdown on all of reality.
We may be here a while then. Ask away, officer. I'll help however I can.
Amazing. Okay.
All right, we're in. I know these all look good, but begin with the first, okay?
All right, encyclopedia. So I can say, where are we? What times are these? What is this acute encephalopathy? Acute encephalopathy. Oh, encephalopathy. Lopathy. Encephalopathy. That's a hard one. Is that just me? Yeah, so LitCrit was competitive, but not like debate team. It was more like you had to have learned all the literary terms and be able to like remember what was what and correctly apply which term is relevant to the thing. So it's like there was a multiple choice section, but there's also an essay section. You had to be able to like interpret like poetry and plays and things like that, and memorize a lot of things. I was really into that. I had a least favorite literary critic, Harold Bloom. Desperately wanted to go to University of Chicago so that I could put a toilet on his front lawn, carrying on a family tradition of what to do with your least favorite professor. I did not go to University of Chicago. Greek, okay. Oh, so wait, encephalopathy has to do with the brain, not just the head? Then why do I think about it as being related to, or is like encephalo, is that related to, like, is the word for brain similar to the word for head? Are they related? I'm sorry, I find that sort of thing interesting. Head sick, brain bad. Cephalo is head, encephalo is what is inside the head. Oh. Aha. Look at us. We just pieced together word things. I'm so proud of us. Good job, team. Thank you for indulging my need to know etymology. Because I do. All right. I know I am. I'm legitimately proud of you. Thank you. Thank you for that. This is one of the nice things is I don't even have to open up Google and investigate things I'm curious about. I can just ask if somebody else does the research or already has it in their brain. One of you, your encyclopedia, this little fellow right here popped up in your brain. I was like, encephalo. It's great. All right. So I can say, where are we? What times are these? What is this acute encephalopathy? I got it that time. I can use esprit de corps, legendary 14. What is, think of something close to you. What are you? What is this? Conceptualization impossible. What is, reach for something fundamental. This can be good. Okay. I probably should have done this sooner. I appreciate that she's indulging us, but also she has no reason not to indulge me. She wants me to be manipulated by her. So if she lets me do my thing, my song and dance routine, then I'm more likely to either expose myself to her in a way that makes me vulnerable to needing to do what she asks me to do, or makes me like her more. Okay. Where are we?
We're in Martinez, baby.
Baby. Or I can say, what is Martinez? So I'm pretty sure that she says that because she's quoting something or trying to sound like some singer. That sounds like a song thing or maybe a line from a movie. So I'm going to ask baby.
A casual term of endearment popular among the 50-plus crowd. It's a disco holdover, pay it no heed.
She says that because she can take a look at me and see that I am a disco holdover. So I can say I'm a disco holdover myself. Maybe. So she's 50 plus, and I guess maybe I'm 50 plus. I'll say I'm a disco holdover myself, not knowing what this means. This might give me an idea of whether it's dangerous to tell her things like this or not.
Aren't we all?
Interesting. So if I think about this from the perspective of Lauren trying to get information, I'm like, oh, how interesting. Okay, so maybe there is something there that we might have in common that I might be able to get through to her on. But what's actually happening here? Again, because Joyce is coming at this with her own agenda, and I need to think about her as like a counter player, as somebody who is trying to fight against me and do the same thing that I'm doing to her. So she's trying to get me to lower my guard. She's trying to establish sort of rapport, but she can't do it over the top. So she's kind of got to be like jaded old lady, and you're like a weird old dude. It's fine. We can be old together.
She refers to your corresponding ages.
Yes, that's correct. That is exactly what I just said, Logic. In case you didn't get that. We're both old. All right. Well, it's okay. Logic is here. Not as good as rhetoric. Rhetoric is definitely great. But still good. And what is Martinez?
Martinez is a district of Revachol. A very small district tucked away near the industrial harbour, north of the 881 and Jamais.
She looks around, her green raincoat flapping in the wind. Just giving us a little bit of like atmosphere here. Yeah, no, I'm very proud of that series. I think it makes me feel like, yes, this is the right build for me because we are like on the same page a lot of the time. And then, of course, periodically, like, rhetoric or empathy or logic or somebody will betray me, and I'm just like... Yeah, so the 881 is interesting because that sounds like how we talk about highways. And we don't have highways per se that I know of, although they have trucks, which indicate that you must actually be able to make some distance crossing by land instead of by boat. And I think it's cheaper to have a truck than to have a boat, even a little boat. So that would make sense. So I'm curious what the 881 is, and maybe we'll be able to ask about that. So a district of Revachol. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around, but perhaps now that my brain is working a bit better, I'll be able to wrap it around what's going on in this game and how this world works. We'll find out. All right. So north of the 881 and Jamais. We are a small district. This is a district. So there's Revachol, and then there's a district. And the district has different neighborhoods? No. The Revachol is the city. Martinez is one. Jamais is the bad news. I think Jamais, despite its name sounding like they like dance a lot there, I think it's one of the worst news ones. Like the ultimate bad news. All right.
You would be excused for not knowing about it. Unimportant, they say. Forgotten, even. Shelled to smithereens during the Revolution. It has its charms, just not this time of year.
I'm going to get so much information out of this, folks. I hope you're all right with this taking a little while. But she has a lot. She's willing to indulge me because the more she indulges me, the more she'll be able to get what she wants out of me potentially. So we're going to do this. Yeah, I don't think that the muscle guy and I would be a good fit. All right, tell me more about Martinez. So this time of year, I'm curious what its charms are. Unimportant, they say. That's so great. She can insult it without it being her insult at all. Tell me more about Martinez.
I'm not a good ambassador. I've only been here once before, as a teenager. Not a lot has changed. There are ruins, a terminal, fishing boats, reeds, boys with boxy shoulders.
See, and so she's giving me a little bit of vulnerability there, remembering her teenager experience here. She closes her eyes to do this again, like they're setting the stage. She seems super relaxed, which, knowing now also like how in charge she is, it is very interesting the time that we've been able to kind of pull her, like knock her off balance. And I kind of wish I'd done this because this might have given me more points to throw her off balance in other conversations later. Hey, Ampy, it's going all right. We're probably gonna get through Joyce tonight, maybe. All right, so she noticed sexy boys when she was here as a teenage girl. Ruins, a terminal, fishing boats, and reeds, boys with boxy shoulders.
A brief spike of longing in her upright body. The dots under her eyelids shake.
Oh. She's actually letting herself remember this. I'm not quite sure what it is, but there's something that she had then that she lacks now. I mean, or it could just be that she's thirsty. I don't know.
This place used to be a province, a workers' resort before the city swallowed it and the artillery did its work. The reeds are the real star of the show here now. The further down the coast, the wilder it gets.
Okay, so it was more provincial, I think is the term. So it would be more like the countryside. Well, just I thought that her remembering that was a vulnerability she was allowing me to see, to manipulate me, but having the physical reaction to that as she remembers it seems genuine. But she could also be allowing me to see that she's genuine to try to get me to trust her, which I'm not going to trust her. I want information about her because I'm really curious. I really can't do anything with that information, but it's harder to fake physical reactions like that, but you could work harder to control it. That's what I'm saying. That's why I phrased it the way that I did, that she is allowing me to see that, if that makes sense. Acting is hard, but controlling yourself is a bit more doable. I'm pretty decent at that. Not at acting, but at controlling my responses. It's funny, yeah, because it's a tough empathy check, it feels like it's actually legitimate and that she may have not, like it may have been involuntary instead of something that she chose not to control. It's funny, when I was talking about like kind of having a perspective, like better perspective on like autistic mindsets, trying to understand the world around you and what you feel versus what other people say something is. A lot of like the, like, are you autistic or not? Like questions, like a lot of them don't just don't ring true for me. Like don't feel like my experience. But one thing in my personal experience is that does with those is the like, somebody is talking at me. I must make sure that I'm putting the right expression on and shaping my body and my pose, my reaction, my everything to be appropriate to whatever they're saying or doing rather than authentically feeling it. But that's not an always thing. And I don't know. I think I might just overanalyze stuff or something like that. All right. You were here as a teenager? I want to hear about this more. She might close off more because she's opened her eyes and is telling me about this. Used to be a countryside workers resort, which actually that makes a lot of sense. Sorry, once again, I'm so fixated on like the words and the rhetoric side of things that I do that initially and then have to actually deal with the content of the message. So she's saying this used to be like a place that people could go and relax, and that things would be beautiful for beauty's sake, presumably, because it used to be a workers' resort before the city swallowed it. So it used to not be part of the city. It used to be something outside of the city where workers would go to vacation. And that could explain what I've been kind of wondering about with the like some of the like beauty for beauty's sake. For example, because this would be something that is specifically unique to something that is not connected to the royalty, to the monarchy side of things. We have the hostel that I'm staying in feels very much like it could be shared housing for workers at a resort. And yet it has these ridiculous, excessive levels of I'm blanking on the name. When you take bits of pottery or tile, mosaic. It has this like excessive bit of mosaic, which is beauty for beauty's sake. If you're simply trying to make something, because the thing is, if you're trying to make something cheaply and you're trying to make something functional, you're not going to put that level of beauty in it, because making a mosaic is really hard. Mosaics take a lot of time and a lot of thought and a lot of effort. Like, there's not really an easy, cheap way to mosaic very, very, very well. And if this were going to be a luxury place, then the rest of the hostel would be fancy and beautiful. But it's not. The room, I mean, obviously it's completely wrecked because Ocelot has completely destroyed it. But it's pretty utilitarian, and the entire place feels like it is more utilitarian than luxurious, and yet it is beautiful. And so the idea of it being a workers' resort actually makes perfect sense. A company-owned retreat for workers? See, like, because of the presence of unions and organized labor here, like, I would have assumed that it would be something affiliated with that in some capacity. And so you have people creating something for themselves, for their own. And if you create something for yourself that is meant to be enjoyable for yourself and for your peers, then you're more likely to put something beautiful in it for beauty's sake, even if it isn't a luxury thing. I don't know. At the very least, the idea of it being a resort for working class people, at that balance of luxury but not luxury, makes sense. So, you were here as a teenager? So I'm curious about the reeds. This is the second time she's mentioned the reeds. They're the star of the show. The further down the coast, the wilder it gets. That's going to have a significance somehow, somewhere, at some point in this game.
Yes, I was slumming it with some girlfriends of mine. We had boats and... Don't hold it against me. The boys certainly did not.
Slumming it. Oh my god, so she and a bunch of her high-class teenage girl pals came here to hook up with the low-class, beautiful working boys. Huh. Yeah, Broccoli, I'm not used to thinking about working class people having the means to go to a retreat, which is why I was thinking that it might be something connected to, like, organized labor and a union and, like, workers' rights being powerful enough to be affiliated with that, as opposed to it necessarily being company associated. Because if it's company associated, is the company really going to bother with a mosaic? I'm so used to companies thinking of their employees, especially corporations, thinking of their employees as cogs that get the work, that get the job done so that the people at the top can extract wealth from them. And so you would want to give them the bare minimum to keep going, if that is your perspective. Not put a beautiful mosaic floor covering the entirety of the floor, you know? So, I don't know. Well, Joyce is here thinking back to her unrestrained youth. It is kind of funny thinking about that. It doesn't feel like it's richer yuppie types, because richer yuppie types would have wanted a fancier overall look to the hostel instead of something that's more functional, I would think. So it's that combination of things. It could be that workers' resorts are specific Soviet era things. That is knowledge that I do not have. And so unless this game tells me, I am going to operate under the assumption that I don't know what it is. I will give the game the opportunity to tell me what it is. I have told you what I assume they mean by workers' resorts. If this game expects me to come to this with other knowledge, I don't have that knowledge, and I will continue operating as though I don't have that knowledge. All right, you mentioned a sea. What sea is this?
It's not really a sea, it's the Bay of Revachol. And the bay feeds into the ocean.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around exactly how this works, and even what the difference is between a sea and a bay and an ocean and all of these things. I don't know. I don't do geography. Are we near the
Yes.
ocean?
We're on an island in an ocean, the world's largest body of water, the Insulindic.
So the Insulindic is one of the oceans. There is no such ocean with that name in our world. What is the largest ocean in our world? Is it the Atlantic or the Pacific? I really don't know. The Pacific. Interesting. Okay. So Pacific, the word, I believe has to do with peaceful. If I'm not mistaken, like the root of it. It's not so much an ocean as an ocean hemisphere. Okay. Same as like pacifier, etc., etc. Because if their world is like our world, but with things being kind of shifted, then if the Insulindic is another name for something similar to what exists in our real world, then the Pacific Ocean would be what's closest to the Insulindic as the biggest ocean. I will be then looking out over the next little while to see what, to see if there are any additional similarities that I'm able to pick up on. Because Insulindic, I think there was reason to think that it might have something to do with India or something like that, but that's not the case in our world. So, I don't know.
Known to the early Revacholians as les immensités bleues, the blue immensities.
So the early Revacholians spoke in French, according to this. Which I assume must mean that this place would have been settled by the French. Which of course immediately makes me wonder whether there were indigenous people before the French-speaking people came. Or whether these people here are supposed to be where like the French language originates. I don't know. Okay. The blue immensities, referring to the world's largest body of water and ocean.
Vast, lukewarm and unknowable, flowing in and out of sight.
Thank you, Inland Empire, but I don't think that the ocean is usually lukewarm. I like that Inland Empire is just there, just like, it just wants to just tell you, it's just vibing, it's just having a feeling, it's having a thought, there's an image, there's just an image, there's feelings going on, and you just gotta hear those images. Alright, what's the name of this island?
Caillou, as you already know. Imagine a pebble. A smoothed over pebble amidst a great blue sea, misshapen, cracked. The cracks are the river Esperance. We're in the delta of this river, on the 6th branch, the Martinez distributary.
Yeah, I remember hearing about being on the delta. I just have such a hard time imagining it. Like, a world consisting of islands is very hard for me to visualize because I'm so used to living on a very large continent with very large countries. So, a place made of archipelagos is very different. Very different. Yeah, the places do sound real. Everything here sounds very real. A smoothed over pebble amidst a great blue sea, which makes it sound like we're just like on this like little bitty itty bitty caillou. Like, I know what a delta is. That I know. I do know what a delta is. I'm not a geography person, but I am a geology person. So things that are related to land, I know more. And delta is the intersection of the water stuff, which I don't know so much, and the land stuff, which I do know more of. And deltas are particularly interesting because they tend to be places where you find lots of really interesting sedimentary rocks and sediment. Because, anyway, I'm going to spare you. Yes, New York is a bunch of islands, but it's a bunch of islands with some water and then a whole lot of continent around it, if that makes sense. It's not just like that it is islands. It seems like it's like all islands. It's just all islands. Like, if it was like we're on this one island and then over there's a continent and over there's a continent. But it feels like it's just island upon island upon island upon island, and that's what's confusing to me. That's what I have a hard time wrapping my head around. Yes. Oops, all islands.
It is clear this pebble is of enormous value to her.
Interesting. That's not what I would have guessed. So thank you for telling me that, empathy. It is interesting the way she's talking about this because she has such fond memories of her first time here from the sounds of it. The way she talks about it, legitimately, it seems like she had a wonderful time here, that this was something that she's lost forever. So.
And to humanity at large.
So Revachol is of enormous value to her and to humanity at large. I guess presumably then there are natural resources to be extracted. Oh man. I mean, it could also be the whole like something went down here that the rest of the world would not allow to stand. King's Quest's world map is a bunch of islands, especially if you're looking at King's Quest 6. But King's Quest is not something I'm trying to map equivalently to the real world. It's not something I expect to be fully functional, and it's not something I expect to have equivalents in the real world. So, all right, that's Martinez. What's Revachol?
Revachol? Revachol is what you call a city.
She is enjoying playing along with this at this point. Like, I think she thinks this is funny. 'Cause I don't think she necessarily believes me fully that I have lost my memory this much. But she's indulging it and having fun with it. What kind of city is Revachol?
The great kind.
The great kind. Oh, interesting. The way she said that is really interesting. Was it Revachol the Great? Because great is capitalized there.
As if it's self-explanatory. Beyond patriotism. A fact.
What makes Revachol great?
History, detective. They built this city to resolve history. Our part in it, at least. Our centuries.
What? This is what I've been trying to wrap my head around this whole time. They built this city to resolve history, our part in it at least, our centuries. So Revachol was constructed to try to... So perhaps the thing that I'm trying to do as one person, as Disco Ocelot, trying to take the different ways of being and put them all on the table and say, what is the right way of doing things? What should we do? I wonder. If it was intentionally built as a place to where that answer would be found. I'm reading a book right now. I just started it called Just City. It's by Joe Walton, so you know it's going to be well written. But it so far seems to have to do with, it has some of the Greek gods in it and also people and across time. But basically, let's build the city of Plato's Republic and see if we can actually make it function as a real place. And I kind of wonder whether something like that is perhaps what was attempted here, what this great experiment was. It's interesting because great was capitalized up there and history is capitalized here. So it's history, like big H history. So let's see, our centuries. What does she mean by that? Okay, who built this city?
The nations of the Occident, or migrant workers from Seminine and Ile-Marat, depending on your creed.
Okay, we've gone over etymologically Occidental. Is that Eastern or Western? Because it was one of the cardinal directions, wasn't it? Western, okay. Oh, I read Moonshine by Jasmine Gower, I think. I think that might have been one of the books that I proofed, actually, the audiobook version. Yes, Occidental is Western, okay. So the Western nations. But what's interesting potentially there is that because of the way that colonialism worked in our world, it's so much of the West colonizing the East and looking to the East as other. So we hear the term Oriental. Then, if that is referring to Eastern, that is a word that is othering. So I wonder, it's possible that the equivalent here is that if nations in like an easternmost part of the world were what was normal in the perspective of us, and then the othering was referring to those on the Western end, that instead of things being Oriental, which is a term that is used in our real world, I wonder whether Occidental is the othering, the equivalent othering term based in the East, looking towards the West and making generalizations othering them. Maybe. Who knows? Look, I'm going to overanalyze the word choices everywhere in this game, and this game is going to reward me for it just often enough to keep me doing it. All right. Seminine, is that where Big Jerk Man, Ultimate Racist is from? Well, his ancestors, apparently not actually him. Ile-Marat is a name that I don't think I know. Okay. So this is Ultimate Racist's original ancestral home. Of course I mean Measurehead. Who else would be Ultimate Racist in this game, Chrono, that I have met? There may be an Ultimate Racist, but frankly, if Measurehead is the penultimate racist, I shudder to think of what Ultimate Racist would be like. All right. So the city was either... Okay, so once again, I am looking at the words and secondarily thinking about the meaning of the words. So we've had some fun playing around with the etymology of the words. But the actual meaning of the words, when she says depending on your creed, is either you're saying that the great nations of the Western world came together to create the city, or the city was actually built, constructed by the migrant workers who were brought in to actually build it. So the reason why that's so interesting to me, that I can bring my personal historical cultural baggage to a big conversation that's been being had in the US in recent months or even years is reckoning with the darker sides of American history. And a lot of that has to do with how one group of people, largely the conservatives, want to continue idealizing the founding of the United States and the founding fathers of the United States, which is the term that we use for people who are responsible for the creation of the young nation. Kind of holding them up as heroes. And I think part of the reason why conservatives are more likely to want to do this is because they tend to be more religious and more theocratic. And so having like the great holy men that you can hold up and say the holy men created our country is more comfortable and appealing to them. Whereas a different mindset that does not have the need to look to the grand example of the holy men, but that wants to because ideally the progressive mindset is to try to move beyond what was in the past and try to figure out what we can do better. A lot of that has to do with seeing the ugliness in the past, seeing flaws in the past, seeing the flaws in the existing way, and then trying to move away from that and do something different. And so the question is, how do we describe what made the U.S.? What made America? Those of you who do not feel comfortable with the U.S. being referred to as America, I'm sorry, but if I'm talking about it in this context, that is how it is phrased here. But like, who built America? And so you have these two opposing sides. The great men, the founding fathers, built America, and they put their great educated brains together, and then they fought for it, blood, sweat, and tears. Or America was built on the backs of slaves, of enslaved people, because the economy was able to become what it was because a great amount of labor didn't need to be paid. And was in fact a source of additional income in addition to the work that was able to be done by those people. So literally that gave, like, anyone who works, anyone who okay, we'll put this in like stupid video game logic, stupid video game terms. I had an easier time when I tried to play Warcraft 3 playing as the Night Elves, because then I had a resource that didn't run out. If you can not have to worry about one of your resources, everything else gets easier. So if you don't have to pay the people who do a lot of the work, then you have an advantage because you can put those resources elsewhere. So it makes sense. And furthermore, like fundamentally, we've talked, I think, before on my channel about racism and the need to ensure division among like lower class, working class people by inventing the concept of whiteness and then othering everyone who doesn't fall under the umbrella of whiteness. And then that becoming a fundamental part of the makeup of American culture, for better or for worse. So there's all that, but also literally so many places were physically constructed by slaves too. So not just created using the wealth taken by not giving anything to the enslaved people for their labor, but also literally having them do the physical back-breaking work. And so that's kind of what she's talking about here. Depending on your creed, it took me a minute because I was so caught up in what the individual words here were and what these places are and what that means and what that tells me about the world. But depending on your creed, either the great nations did it or it was built on the backs of the migrant workers. And that's interesting. Okay. When was Revachol built?
In the DeLorean century. 380 years ago.
DeLorean, that is related to the Kingdom of Conscience that I just got. They talked about DeLorean and stuff. So then perhaps the Kingdom of Conscience in a way was what was some people at least were trying to create. Or related to. No, because if this was like a grand experiment, did they 380 years ago. Okay. For a country. Okay. Yes, 380 years does not seem super long. But also, like, compare it to, like, the US, our age as a nation. It's like, okay. Alright. Alright, and why will it resolve history? Continue. I think I've asked all the questions that I had to ask.
They say it's where the terrible questions of our time will be answered. The tensions are highest, the fault lines deepest.
But who is they? They say it's where the terrible questions will be answered. So they've constructed an experimental city in which people are at their most extreme to find out how people will respond to things. I don't know if that's actually what they're doing, but that's where my Inland Empire goes with this. It's nice to have that as a term to explain what this is.
By that I mean conflicts. Ideological conflicts. The stuff of men.
Yes. Which will be warring within me if I actually accept any of the other philosophies that are presented to me. Alright, why here?
We are standing on a fertile, self-sufficient island able to sustain up to 200 million people in the middle of the Insulindic Ocean, the world's connective tissue. It's where the money is.
Okay. So this is the pebble that is worth so very much. Okay. So I can say, so we're in an unimportant part of an important place, or so we're pretty much at the center of the world, or so we're on the periphery, basically nobody's. What am I trying to accomplish here? Because I should probably figure out what I want to do instead of, because this is not just how will I get interesting information from her, or how will I roleplay this character in an interesting way and develop relationships with people. This is a boss fight. I don't know if there's actually boss fighting happening or if this is a sidetrack, but just in case, she's trying to do something here. What is she trying to do? What am I trying to do? It does sound like we're in an unimportant part of an important place is the most accurate description of what she's been saying. We're pretty much at the center of the world. It's not quite, right? And we're on the periphery, basically nobody's is completely off. So for me, and my tendency to want to give the right answer, number one seems like the best choice. Because sometimes if you give the right answer, people will reward you with more information. Pausing a boss fight to discuss socioeconomics with the boss. Disco Elysium, folks, right there. But then if my desire is actually to throw her off, then picking an answer that I know is wrong would be the right way to do that. Meanwhile, everyone in chat is discussing how old various cities are to compare them to Revachol. Alright. I think I'm gonna go with... I'm not going to pick the right answer. The right answer. Here. I'm gonna see what happens. I think I'm gonna choose... So we're pretty much at the center of the world. Well, either that or if the answers that we're getting here in some way contribute to the ideologies being at war through my character, then she said this is where the money is. The money is the most important thing in the world. The money is not important in the world, or it's complicated. Damn it. I feel like so much of me playing this game is going to be like that scene with Vizzini in The Princess Bride. I am sorry. Oh no. All right. You know, whatever. I'm going to go with the answer that feels like the answer I would give. So we're in an unimportant part of an important place. See what happens.
I think it's fair to say so. Martinez is about...
She points across the water where the skyscrapers rise. It's hard to imagine skyscrapers with how utterly devastated this section of the city is. Building up an immunity to ideology by repeated exposure to discourse. Yes, I'm getting my I'm getting my allergy shots right here.
22 kilometers from the center of the world. That soldering iron is the Bank of the World building. The bottom floors are INSURCOM, coalition government Insulindian Mission Command.
Okay, hold on. There's way more information that I need to actually process here that is way more important than this. But soldering iron is how I'm used to it being said in American English. Even though it's spelt soldering, it's pronounced soldering. So when people hear that word and they don't know how it's spelled, they will spell it wrong because it sounds wrong. But she pronounced it closer to how it's actually written. So is that the British pronunciation? Is that the British pronunciation? Because, like, that's wild. If so, I'm learning all these things that I didn't know about my language. I know that's completely inconsequential, but you cannot be even remotely surprised by me getting hung up on things like this. All right. So to actually engage with the content of this and not be totally thrown off by the word that I was excited about. Yeah, well, okay. Can the other Americans confirm soldering iron being the way that you're used to hearing that pronounced? Because that's how I thought the word was spelled until I saw solder and I was like, wait, is that the word that I heard? Okay. So there we go. That is a confirmation. The American pronunciation is soldering. The non-American pronunciation in English is not soldering. Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. I have completely derailed the conversation, but I really enjoy these useless differences. They're really interesting. Okay, so 22 kilometers from the center of the world. So there is the center of the world, not that we're nobodies. That soldering iron, I'm sorry, is the Bank of the World building. Bank of the World. The bottom floors are INSURCOM, coalition government Insulindian Mission Command. Those letters don't line up. Coalition government Insulindian Mission Command. Okay, so she's put that in bold, basically. And please do not tell me what these words mean or what this context is or how important these things are in the context of this game world. Because I don't know yet, and I'm trying to figure that out. So, the Bank of the World is the center of the world, has the Bank of the World building, with the coalition government's governing body for the Insulindian. Okay, so it's not that this is their governing body for us in particular. This is their governing body's mission command in this region, but it's not specifically designed to look at us, or to be in charge of us. Okay. It's interesting. And again, I'm not somebody who... There are big holes in my knowledge of things, but it is interesting to me, or seems a little strange to me, to have a bank building that has government headquarters or coalition government headquarters based in it. Like, I feel as though a bank and governing body would be separate, but I'm also used to privately held banks. So I suppose if the bank itself is not privately held, but is actually interconnected with the coalition government, then that would make sense. That would be different because it's not private profiteering the way privately owned banks can be. Well, it's not like just like a consulate in a random bank building, because that makes, to some degree, that makes sense in that bank buildings are very likely to be secure and consulates occasionally have to worry about security. And I would wonder whether the Japanese consulate in particular has to worry about safety based on the time that that consulate was built or founded. Because, so for example, it's interesting walking around Toronto, you'll see a lot of like the different, like the word blank, but for different countries, they'll be like, oh, there's another nation's flag hanging from out front of that building. Embassies, thank you, that's the word. So you'll see embassies around, and a lot of them are just like in old buildings, like just like old houses, or like storefronts or something like that. And then there's the American Embassy downtown, and the American Embassy downtown, I have walked past and been inside because I had to get my passport. Has giant concrete blocks on the sidewalk in front so you can't drive a vehicle up towards it. It's this big concrete, like, it feels like a tank if a tank were a building, like a fortress of some sort. You go inside and you have to go through multiple levels of security. You're not allowed to bring your cell phone inside. And it is very interesting to contrast that and to wonder, are they like that compared to every other embassy in the entire city of Toronto? Because they are paranoid, or because people are actually out to get them that badly, or both? It's interesting. I don't know. So that kind of makes me wonder if there is, you know, if there are places like that in particularly, like, if cities have embassies, what's the difference between an embassy and a consulate? Actually, I don't know. But if additional security is needed, a bank is a pretty good place for security. But yeah, so the Bank of the World is different than what I think of as a bank. That makes sense. The World Bank is different than, like, I don't know, banks. I don't like banks. Embassies in the capital, consulate not. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Yes, that does not surprise me. Most consulates are offices. The U.S. consulate is a military fort. Yeah, that's about right. It is really astonishing. Okay, well, I have gone to this place as a citizen abroad to get my passport. Maybe it is a consulate, but because this is not the capital, so this would be a consulate, not an embassy, I guess. The embassy would be in Ottawa. I wonder what the one in Ottawa is like. Because Toronto is a much bigger city, but Ottawa is technically the capital, so I don't know these things. So what I mean, there's holes in my knowledge of things. There are many things I do know and many things I don't know. And doing this on stream really reveals a lot of what I do or don't know. Okay, so maybe then the one in Toronto is a consulate, not the embassy. That would make sense. Maybe, I don't know. Okay, I'm not really sure how that works. I just know that I go to this fortress-like building if I need anything as an American citizen. Still got my Canadian passport way faster than my American passport. All right, so I can look to the sea. Okay, so 22 kilometers. That's not very far. By driving, anyway. It's the bottom floors of that. So they basically have a big chunk of their governing body here. In Revachol? So Revachol is the center of the world. Even though they destroyed it. They bombed it, and then they built their center of the world headquarters here. That's really interesting. All right, look to the sea.
Silence. She lowers her hand.
I feel like I missed a check here.
The water, the light. It's as though you're seeing it for the first time.
I don't know. I feel as though I'm missing something she's trying to convey here. Or else perhaps she is manipulating me too much. But it feels as though something here is missing.
There is no recognition. Only the immensity of the sea and the cold radiating from it.
Check it out, folks! Did I just get my first Spidey sense? I just got my first Spidey sense. I'm so excited about that. Oh man, I put a point in Spidey sense and I'm very happy about this. But because this Spidey sense fits my character, I would have put it up with one of I would have put it up in place of authority and bumped authority down to the physical one because F authority. This is my first shivers, yes. I had to put an extra point in it because I have 1 point in all of my physical stuff. So, all right. There's no recognition, only the immensity of the sea and the cold radiating from it. So I don't seem to have this connection to it. I see the sea. I find the sea off-putting. The water, the light. Inland Empire thinks it's beautiful and Shivers thinks it's unfamiliar. That's so interesting. Yeah, no, like I went like all in on brain, like on imagination and knowledge. Don't remember what those are called, but that. Blue and purple with empathy as my signature trait. Intellect and psyche. Okay, look. You're lucky you didn't get like smarts and feelings. Because I could have called it smarts and feelings. Oh, man. Okay. So I can either say, where are we? I don't know any of this. Or say nothing. Observe the large body of water swelling. Cold. These are all good answers. Oh, smarts and hearts. Oh, I like that, Phil. Okay. Yes, this is a smarts and hearts run. I think we should do that. You think we should call it a smarts and hearts run the next time people ask? That should be our official name. I should put that down at the bottom of my stream screen. I like that. All right. There was no recognition, only the immensity of the sea and the cold radiating from it. Where are we? I don't know any of this. Just observe the large body of water swelling. I feel like if I observe the large body of water swelling, this one right here feels as though you're trying to like tap into some part of yourself and quiet down to let that speak. Or not say anything and let Joyce fill the air with something. I'm curious about that. Oh my god, flex and dex. I like that. Let's see. That's a gift. You folks have a gift collectively. Thank you for that gift. All right. I think I'm going to choose number 3. Say nothing. Observe the large body of water swelling. Cold. Let's see what happens. Maybe Inland Empire will do something. Like the thing is, this could go horrifically depressed and like recoil from it at once. Or it could be the horrifying necktie going total clown shoes or any number of things like that. Let's see. Let's do that because I'm curious about it. Let's say nothing.
She observes your eyes scanning the horizon, then breaks the silence, slowly.
I totally... Okay. So first of all, yes, I did in fact leave room for my brain to think about something. And then my brain thought about something. That means never seen. Derealization. That's so interesting. But also notice that Joyce is paying close attention to my reaction to this. I'm very curious if she's going to go in for the kill after this of some sort. I don't know what that would be. Because she's gathering information just as I'm gathering information. Well, I studied French, so I know never seen. As opposed to déjà vu. I don't know about it as a term, but I know what the words mean. So I can look up the term. Well, don't tell me how Shivers works. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. I'm going to figure it out or I won't. But it's fine. I have my own thoughts about what it is and how it works and how it's going to work. But I'm really curious. I really, really desperately want to have Shivers be part of the pantheon of internal voices that speak to me in this game. I think that it's an essential part of the experience I want to have that I've been missing. So I'm really excited about it. Shivers work when you get cold. Ha, that's funny. Okay, how do I think Shivers works? Oh man. Shivers works when a pirate gives you timbers. Very nice. Very nice. Thank you. I appreciate your joke answers about how Shivers works. That's very good. Excellent. Nobody gets the hammer today. No, my thoughts on Shivers are going to be that it is going to give me... Like, it is the presence of the city. And I want to understand my relationship to the city. And I want to understand the city. And I want the city to be a character in the game. And so having Shivers, I'm hoping, will characterize the city in a way that I feel a good detective story ought to. And that a city that is as well built as this ought to. When the location is clearly designed such that it could be a character in the story, I would like for it to be so. But I'm hoping that Shivers will... perhaps provide a little bit of context and an understanding of like what does Ocelot know about the city. But I think it will also give him connection to the city. So I think he felt cold looking out there because it's not the city. And because since I've given him some degree of Shivers, I've given him a connection to the city. Therefore, a thing that is outside of the city is going to feel unfamiliar and cold. So that's a thought. Just a thought. But I literally just got my first Shivers reaction, so I don't know. I can mostly say why I put points in Shivers and what I wanted to get out of it, and using that to like try to understand what Shivers here said and did and what it's going to do. 'Cause I think it's going to encourage, because the voices kind of encourage what your playthrough could be like, or they give you options, things to react to. So in this case also, because I think that Shivers in particular is the city is speaking to you, when you have the option to not say something, you're kind of allowing the city to speak to you in a way. So I'm wondering, we'll see if I get more Shivers options, if there's always going to be the one to sit and listen, then we'll know. So we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, Joyce is noticing that I'm looking at the horizon and perhaps thinking, even though I want her to underestimate me, perhaps that is going to backfire here.
This is one thought you need to complete. Where are you?
All right, Inland Empire.
Was there something else you wanted to know? I remember something about a lowdown.
Yes, I need to know where I am, yeah.
This has been informative. Thank you, ma'am. I'm sure my memory-impaired partner has many more questions to ask, about even more fundamental aspects of reality.
So he's actually encouraging me to do this, I think, unless he's going to say, but maybe at another time. He's going to cut me off. Let's see.
Might I suggest not asking them all right now? Ma'am, Messier will be here later too, and tomorrow. Isn't that true, ma'am?
Oh, man. Oh. Kim's allowed to backseat. He and Goombella are allowed to backseat. They are the only ones in their respective games. Granted, to be fair, if Goombella shows up in Disco Elysium and backseats, I will allow it. But only if it's actually in the game. So none of you don't put on your Goombella costumes so you can get away with backseating here. I won't allow it. Oh my god, if you draw Kim and Goombella hanging out, that would be adorable. Yeah, Kim is like, maybe you ought to take a break. He's like, from a gameplay perspective, you should probably allow your character to digest bits of information. Also understand that this conversation doesn't have to be everything. This is not a one and done, you've talked to her and everything's over sort of thing. Which is actually really, really valuable for them to tell you. Because, I mean, obviously, like, I know that you can walk away from the conversation and come back if you haven't completed it. But my concern is once I complete the conversation, can I come back and talk to her about this stuff? To me, it feels like Kim is saying, yes, absolutely you can, which is helpful. So ma'am is literally standing from Adam here, which is where it originally came from. Isn't that delightful? Isn't that delightful? Because we have the juxtaposition of the English and the French here. And we have a lot of French in English because of the Norman conquest and so on. Oh my god. I mean, it does, but it's kind of become its own word, so people don't know that ma'am's comes from madam. Like, that's a thing you have to sit and be like, huh, oh, I guess that's where that comes from. It's not like a known and used thing. Yeah, see, exactly. Look at that. Look at Chrono's reaction to it. No, you're not dumb. You are not at all dumb, Chrono. So for example, because there's a lot of things that you don't really think about until somebody asks you about them. So I had a friend in high school who was Armenian, and she came over to the US in high school. And her English was quite good, but she wasn't a native speaker, and she'd been kind of like working on building her skills. I guess she maybe came over in middle school, but she was in high school by the time I met her. And she asked me what the word critter meant and why it was critter. And I was like, I haven't thought about that. Oh, it's a bastardization of the word creature. But I had to think about that. So it's one of those things that, like, you don't stop to question it. You just use the word as it's presented to you, unless you're the sort of person who thinks really, really hard about the etymology of every word that ever crosses your desk. I mean, I don't know for sure 100% that critter is creature, but that was the best thing my mind came up with. I know goodbye, yeah, it was God be with you. Yeah. Good times, man. Good times. And then yeah, there's words that aren't related, and words that the same word from the same other foreign language entered the English language at different points in that other language's history. So you have similar but not quite the same things because the other language evolved in between the first time it gave this word to English and the second time it gave this word to English. It's shifted somewhat. It's fascinating. I love it. I love it so much. I love it so much. I love language so much. I don't know, folks, if you picked up on that or not. But somebody put too many points in rhetoric. And that means I can't stop talking, no matter what. And I always want to know the etymology and roots and things like that. And I can't not ask that. So I definitely have too many points. I have the two, like when your points get too high in rhetoric and you just, that's me. That's me, folks. I don't know whether I have too many points in empathy or not, but I do have too many points in rhetoric. All right. Yeah, the music is like quietly ominous. And kind of stately. But it's very unobtrusive. It doesn't want to draw attention to itself. It doesn't want you to think about it. You don't sit and think, I'm listening to music here. You don't think this is music that's associated with this particular character. Like, none of that happens. It's not in your face like the moment you step outside of the Whirling in Rags and are hit with that absolutely stunning arrangement. It's much subtler, easier to overlook, to underestimate, to not realize what's happening. In the meantime, she appears to have clipped fully through and is now standing within that section of her boat. I'm pretty sure she started off here and has slowly clipped in this way, which is hilarious. All right. I do think we should actually shut down after this. So I'm going to... Yeah, so if Cookie and Cake entered at different points, but if you go far enough back, they had the same route. Like, that's so fascinating to me. That's so fascinating to me. I've read a book and listened to some podcasts and done some additional reading and studying and like to listen to what dictionaries have to say. Because again, one should never take one source and use that source as though it is the word of God. You should always look at multiple sources, cross-reference things, and come to your own conclusions as best you can, guided by the information that you're able to get. So there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and finish this conversation, and then we'll save. And I guess we're going to have more Joyce at some point. All right.
Absolutely. My commitment here is long-term.
She's really funny. All right, you're right, Lieutenant. I'll continue later. But I want to know it now. But won't I be lazy if I don't do it all now? No, I don't want to do that. Joyce part 11, maybe. I don't know. This is the slowest. This is the slowest thing ever. There will be a game play at some point where we don't start with 20 to 40 minutes worth of random talk at the beginning, but it's just really interesting. So you can know that I read all of the YouTube comments because I wind up like processing them all and distilling my response into like one observation about humanity at a time. The rejoicing, very nice blues. Hot mess in the Lady Messier. Oh man, amazing. Oh man. Incredible Victor Ghost. People are crazy. So I'm going to say you're right, Lieutenant. I'll continue later because I need to turn off and be Kim is Kim. I want Kim to be happy with me. So I'm not gonna. Well, or could I, do I want a clown shoes? I don't actually think I can successfully clown shoes at Joyce. I'm pretty sure she has seen through my ruse. Because the funny thing is, as clown shoes as he is, fundamentally under that, there's actually a very serious and competent man. And the clown shoes are only one part of the story. And they come out uncontrollably and unpredictably. So I can't use clown shoes anytime I want to clown shoes. But Kim wants her to underestimate me. And all I've done is taken psychic damage. And I don't think she underestimates me. I think she thinks this is a man who's very brilliant in some ways, a hot mess in other ways. He's an alcoholic who's clearly messed with his brain. But he could be a force to be reckoned with if he actually gets his brain under control. So I should get him under my thumb before that happens. I think so, honestly. Like, I almost feel like there's no point in clown choosing anymore because I don't think, and I'm afraid that I'm going to mess it up and give her more things. It's really interesting. Really interesting. My entire perception of this game and interacting with her has changed. It's brilliant. Because now I'm going to bring that wondering to like every other character in the game. So I'm going to ask myself, what is this person after? Maybe something that I should have wound up asking myself earlier. But even when I was talking to the people in the strike, there wasn't that feeling of that, you know? Like, it didn't feel like you were engaging in verbal warfare with them. It's really interesting. Really interesting. Probably is going to make me a better writer, actually. Because having to remind myself every time I have these conversations with these characters, what is this character after? What is this character trying to do? What do I have to defend myself against in the case of somebody like Joyce? Will make me think more actively about what the characters that I'm writing about are thinking and feeling and what they want and what they're looking for, and what they're trying to get. And I think that even if I don't wind up maintaining that long term as a conscious thing to think about, I think subconsciously it'll be a habit that I could get into, which would definitely improve the quality of my characterization in my writing. Yay! I need to write more. I will do that. All right. So I should go ahead and shut down. So we'll say, you're right, Lieutenant. I'll continue later.
It's better not to eat all your candy at once.
Oh man. And yeah, no, I know that every character wants something, but you don't consciously think your way through that as you're writing things. And I think that this will be a good practice. This will be good exercise. It's one of the basic tenets of writing, yes. But it's not necessarily something that, because I'm such a discovery writer, I don't usually set out to like plan what I'm doing, but I think internalizing this as a tool will wind up being useful. Kim wants to prevent giving me a stomachache. It's very cute because you can also tell that this is something that I really want and I'm enjoying and I'm excited about.
Indeed. I'm always at your service.
So can I conclude for now? And I can come back and do this, right? Okay, actually I'm going to put this on just to make sure. So that we can shut down in a reasonable amount of time. I can do that's all for now and then I can come back and get each of these. Yes? Okay, then I'm going to do that's all for now. Conclude for now.
Glad to have been of assistance.
That's all for now.
Little that I know. Anything else?
A little bit of self-deprecation there for her. All right. We've got things to look at and things to think about and so on, but we're going to save the game properly here. I did just save. Let me make sure I actually saved. You never want to not save. This is what I just saved. So I'm going to save over it. Yes, I like the music note. Okay. So yes, we got a new thought. We've got a lot of stuff to chew on. And I'm sure that folks are going to have things to say about the things that I said. As always, if you made it this far on YouTube and you want to leave comments, please feel free. They also help. The thing is, it's not that this is something that like is going to make my channel grow and people are going to be like, yes, I need to see this. Like, I don't know, this is something that should be like served up when people search for Disco Elysium playthroughs because it feels so niche. But if this is what people want when they search for Disco Elysium playthroughs, if you leave comments, if you like, comment, and subscribe, that will make it so that YouTube serves up my content to more people. So you can inflict this on more people if you want to. As always, everybody, if you are not yet in our Discord server and you want to talk to folks about the spoiler side of things, feel free to do so. You don't even have to get permission to be in the Stream Spoilers channel. You can just go there now. It's not locked. It's behind a door. And if you haven't seen it, if you're still here, I put up a teaser video for my my band's next album, so check that out. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll have more information on that later, and more of the projects that I work on as I work on them. So please look forward to it. There will be more things. I'm feeling like a functional human being to some degree now, and that is making me excited about doing stuff. It's gonna be good. Maybe. I hope. All right. Good night, my friends. Take care of yourselves. I will see you next week.